And so as I was going up 49, I could look over to the left and see the flames in the canyon.
The next layer is for staff to actually be out driving in the areas with a high-low siren. There's no other reason you'll hear that in an area unless we're putting out that evacuation order, not a warning, but an order.
My day started routine patrol. Came in and I was notified by dispatch to respond out to the Jones fire. Houses that had evacuation tags made it so we could just pass by. We knew that the residents had already been evacuated. Residences that did not have the tags, we would have to physically go in, knock on the door, look in the windows, make sure there were no occupants inside.
Once you've been evacuated, as you're leaving, put this tag somewhere very, clearly identifiable, whether it's a mailbox, a gate, your address marker, so that deputies and officers can quickly identify if your residence has already been evacuated.
You look out my back window here on the east side and you see how close this fire came. It was certainly a shock, and at the same time it was such an incredible relief to have the house as safe as it was.
I think with personal preparedness and being ready, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like a lot to do, and the most important piece is to just start with one little bite at a time.
Just start the conversation. Have some sort of plan. It can be as small as a meetup place, a destination that everybody will get to, everybody in the household will get to if there's a disaster.
Recognize you live in a community, in a county, that really does take the emergency response as a priority. We have worked diligently throughout the last few years on ensuring that not only our staff are trained and prepared, but we're also putting that out for our community. The more prepared you are in your own community, the better the outcome is going to be.
The level of community awareness, they have to be part of the solution. They have to communicate with their neighbors. They have to be part of the discussion in communities. They have to support the response, the prevention, the education, and ultimately the collaboration and the engagement. People have to be engaged at all levels.
The more you think about it now, the easier it will be when the time comes that you need to evacuate.
We've created this network and we want you to make sure that you know that you can tap into that. So if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, not sure where to start, reach out to one of our offices, reach out to the Fire Safe Council or 211. We're here to support you.
From the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, a new hero will emerge. One who is ready. one who makes sure their friends and family are set. And has the power to go at a moment's notice. This fire season, you're the hero. We are Ready Nevada County.
Good morning. Welcome to the 27th of February, the 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting, the regular meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and Penelope, would you like to lead us in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, are there any corrections, deletions, or changes to the agenda today?
Chair Bullock, there are 2 changes to the agenda. Agenda item number 26, which was the 1:30 scheduled public hearing, will not be held this afternoon. The appellants withdrew their appeal, so the public hearing will not take place. And then additionally, the closed session regarding labor negotiations will not be held.
Okay, so the Warden appeal for today is canceled. That was at 1:30, and the closed session regarding labor negotiations will not be held over the lunch period. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up general public comment. Members of the public shall be allowed. Just one quick note. Based on the Warden appeal being pulled from the agenda at 1:30 today, if there's any comments related to that item that were previously included, public comment is now your time to make those comments. So if anybody has them, please just join in the public comment period for that particular item. We're welcome to hear you today. Members of the public shall be allowed to address the Board of Supervisors on items not appearing on today's agenda that are of interest to the public and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Speakers are encouraged but not required to give their name and district of residence. Please direct your comments to the board, not the audience or staff. No individual may speak more than once during public comment. Please note that each speaker will be given 3 minutes, at which point the microphone will be automatically turned off. Therefore, please keep your comments clear and concise in the interest of civil discourse. It is the responsibility of the chair to ensure public comments are conducted in such a manner that avoids disruptive activity, promotes mutual respect, keeps comments focused on issues, and avoids personal attacks. Time limits may be modified at the chair of the board discretion. You may provide comment by speaking directly to the board from inside the chambers or by calling 530-270-3474 to comment live over the phone. If you want to make public comment by phone, please call in at the beginning of the item so that you don't miss the opportunity. With that, we can open up public comment, and I'm just going to let everybody know that if you're here describing the conflict in Palestine and Israel, we certainly are welcome to hear your entire 3-minute discussion, what you want to let the board and the other community members know, but you can also just ask us to support a resolution. You'll be noted in public comment, and your voice will be tracked in that process. So don't feel like you have to spend the entire 3 minutes, but you're welcome to if you'd like to. With that, first commenter, please step up to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Penelope Sullivan, and I've been a resident here for about 27 years. I live in Grass Valley. I just want to say that I love our county because it stands up against oppression. We are so thoughtful and conscious and caring in so many ways. And yet how I differ from some of the local, I would say, pro-Palestinian group is that I see a lot of hatred coming to our community. And I want to recognize that there was a ceasefire prior to October 7th. and there was a ceasefire before that, and before that, and before that. And October 7th, there were hundreds and hundreds of Israelis brutally massacred. One account, and this has been, they've invited international journalists and forensic scientists from around the world to document this. But what concerned me most was that our community has shown up in force for George Floyd. We had a prayer vigil. When there were hundreds, in some cases, raped so hard their pelvic bones were smashed, where children watched their mothers being raped and they were shot and burned, our community remained largely silent. And it's recorded on the Nevada City Council meetings. We had members laugh and say they wanted to join Hamas. I went to Briar Patch one night. My friend who is an Israeli, I'm not Jewish, and I'm definitely not from Israel. And the only reason you know me is because I care about humanity. I went to Briar Patch. My friend David was singing a beautiful peace song. He happens to be Israeli. A woman, Yasmin, went home, got a megaphone, came home, started yelling at him and at me that he was a Zionist, promoted genocide, and Briar Patch should ban him. We have people in our community screaming intifada, screaming from the river to the sea, and make it known. Hamas, what that means is kill every Jew from the river to the sea, behind every rock and tree, and that is within their charter. Their leaders are billionaires. They do not care about their people. The local Israelis here have been praying for the Palestinians, saying, free them from Hamas. And my deepest prayer is that somehow we as a collective can come together and see the context of what we're dealing with. This is one of the, so Zionist, okay, sorry, but I just hope that we can come together. There's much more to the story.
Thank you, Penelope.
Good morning, board. Hardy, Sue, Al. Okay, so last time I was here, I brought to your
Please
attention...
state your name.
Well, it's Paul Gilbert.
Thank you.
Well recognized in this community, I would hope, with all the work that I've done. But, you know, Sue, you especially, you know, you had received one of my letters where I pointed out that we have a board, or not a member of our elected officials here in Nevada County who failed to file their oath within a timely manner, okay? That's wrong, okay? They violated their oath, they're breaking the law, they're not entitled to a paycheck, and they need to leave. Now, I was handling that privately. I didn't make any public announcements except for here in this chambers, okay? But today, Michelle Bodley is being called out for not having filed her oath of office in a timely manner as required by law, and this board needs to make a statement on that issue. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now, you may have already received this. This is a writ of mandamus, which is an order to vacate office, okay? But it's not for Michelle Bodley. It's for the court. We have a judge sitting on our bench who has failed to file their oath with the Secretary of State for 16 years. That requires an investigation by this board. This needs to be investigated by our sheriff. It is going to be reported. I will be filing criminal complaints against that particular judge. Okay? That judge's name, B. Scott Thompson. 16 years he has failed to file his oath of office with the Secretary of State in a timely manner. He does not deserve a paycheck. He does not deserve any immunities of his office. He needs to leave now. Now, in this letter, which he has a copy of, I've given him 5 days in which to resign, after which time I will be filing those criminal complaints. Anybody in the county of Nevada that refuses to speak out on this issue and gives this man shelter and allows him to stay in office will be held to the same standards that he is. because you will be aiding and abetting a criminal. This board needs to take action now. Do not let this go on one more day, okay? Now, for the courtesy of the board, I will give you another copy of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Chair Bullock,
Yes.
if I could, in looking at Michelle Bodley's filing, she filed with the clerk. She filed with the clerk of the board. In law, those used to be the same. So there's no requirement. It's just a filing that was then transferred from the clerk of the board to the clerk recorder's office.
Thanks for the clarification.
Oh,
Supervisor Hook?
Supervisor Hook also, apparently the oaths were asked for Supervisor Hook, and I believe another that were given out. We just, the clerk recorder did not give out the most current oath. Once we learned that they had given out an older oath, we had them send the most current, and so that I think that's been sent out.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that. Your time is completed, Mr. Gilbert. Please sit down. Thank you. Please sit down, sir. Please sit down, sir. Thank you. Sit down, sir. Last chance, and you're going to be removed. Thank you. Hi, welcome.
My name is Yasmin Bad Shamaya, and I am a member of the Nevada County Coalition for Human Rights. Our diverse coalition is multi-generational and led by people of color, Jewish people, youth, queer community, and people with disabilities. All our members do other community building that enriches this county for the better. We are here again to urge you to place a ceasefire resolution on this agenda and reaffirm condemnation of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and all acts of hate. This is not a conflict, this is a genocide. The baby rape propaganda has been completely debunked, and it has manufactured consent for the dehumanization and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians and also brown people across the world. This board has a profound opportunity to join a tide of local government bodies standing against the most horrific and well-documented genocide of our time, funded by our tax dollars. Each of our names are on every single bomb and bullet that has murdered 15,000 children and shattered the hearts of 30,000 children who have lost their parents. Although partly symbolic, a Nevada County ceasefire resolution registers our refusal to enable these crimes against humanity. As a majority white county built upon the brutal genocide of indigenous peoples, we have a responsibility to do justly now. This resolution expresses support for safety and security of our Jewish community members. We believe that true solidarity across communities helps foster an environment where all people feel safe and protected. There is a big difference between being uncomfortable and genuinely unsafe, and I'd like you to remember that. Israel has had its hand in oppression across the world, yet continues to paint itself as the victim. I personally understand how individual abusers and oppressive regimes exploit the same psychological tactics. DAVO is an acronym that stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim, and Offender. It describes a manipulative attack used by abusers to avoid taking responsibility for their actions and shift blame to their victims. It's time to act. Because if the 35,000 people murdered were white, we would be in a very different situation now. Our response would be very different. If the 140 journalists that have been murdered were white, we would have a different response. I'd like you to remember that. Please show that Nevada County has a moral backbone. Put a ceasefire resolution on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin, for your comments today.
Every time that I drive into Nevada County, there's a sign.
Can you please state your name?
My name is Josh, and every time I drive into Nevada County, I see a sign that says, "Where we honor veterans." And so I'd ask that we honor one specific veteran. His name is Aaron Bushnell, and I'm going to read his last words. I will be no longer complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it is not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal: free Palestine. Those were Aaron's last words before he set himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. He was an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and he said that he would no longer be complicit in this genocide, and that he could live no longer being part of an oppressive system that is genociding the Palestinian people. Our county says it honors veterans. He was a member of the U.S. military, an active duty one, and he died wearing his United States military fatigues. And he did that so that his name and that his actions would become a freedom cry, and that it would inspire people to continue this fight. Not continue people to do exactly what he did, but to say that we will not give up, and to say that we will do whatever is necessary to make sure that this genocide ends and the people of Palestine are free. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to watch the video of it. It's horrific and it's traumatizing, but it is incredibly important to show the sacrifice that people are willing to make for this struggle. The sacrifice that a 25-year-old man is willing to set himself on fire in public, on video, to say that he cannot take it anymore to be part of this oppressive system, and to say that he will do whatever he can to end the genocide of the Palestinian people. I ask you, please, do the bare minimum and pass a ceasefire resolution. Honor this veteran, honor this member of our military who gave his life fighting for freedom. Please.
Josh, thanks for your comments, and I would note that this board has been extremely outspoken in honoring veterans of the United States. Thank you for your comments.
My name is Noga. I'm a Jewish Israeli American resident of District 1, Nevada County. In the past months, like so many people here, I've been speaking publicly to the Grass Valley and Nevada City Councils, making calls and writing letters to my state and federal representatives, attending protests, and most recently following the Peace and Justice Center in writing an op-ed that was published in the Union 11 days ago. I want to say something about anti-Semitism. One of the fiercest responses to anyone calling for a ceasefire has been that the call either incites anti-Semitism or is itself anti-Semitic. So I want us to be very clear about this word. Hating an entire people is anti-Semitic. Criticizing the acts of a state is not anti-Semitic. Calling as strongly as we can for the state of Israel, my state, to stop slaughtering Palestinians with weapons supplied by the US, our country, and for our country to also stop knowingly killing Palestinians through starvation, dehydration, and curable diseases by restoring funding that we are so cruelly withholding from UNRWA, these calls aren't anti-Semitic. Nor is a call for a ceasefire responsible for anti-Semitism. I experienced anti-Semitic hate speech as recently as last week from online white supremacists at the Nevada City Council meeting, and it was blood-curdling. These are the anti-Semites who I fear, and I am grateful to the council for firmly shutting them down. But I've never felt as safe or grounded in my Jewish ethics as I do within this diverse coalition that understands that calling for a ceasefire to stop the killing of Palestinians goes hand in hand with standing up against hate in all forms in our community. And I need my local representatives to understand this connection. In my op-ed, you can read that I carry immense personal grief for victims of October 7th. My family lives there. But it's also utterly clear to me that Israel's response to Hamas's attack of punishing an entire population through industrial-scale mass killing, the population that it has entrapped and brutalized for decades, is an atrocity that must be stopped. Our federal government is trampling our democracy by ignoring the majority of Americans who are calling on it to stop co-signing the genocide in Gaza. And this is why now, as with other social justice movements we all know about, change has to happen here from the ground up. I'm bewildered by claims I've heard from our representatives that this issue isn't a local one. So please consider that staying silent about genocide is to allow it to continue. Silence isn't a neutral stance. As a Jew, I know this all too well. So please put our community on the right side of history and humanity and agendize this ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Shirley Osgood, District 3. I don't have a city here, I just have a county, so you guys are my folks. I'm also here to recognize Aaron Bushnell. His final message on Facebook poignantly reminds us all, quote, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is, you're doing it right now," unquote. His sacrifice serves as a powerful testament to the impact of individual actions in the face of injustice. And I would also like to point out, since we have many community members who are active Air Force residents of our county and our towns, if you really want to honor them, please move forward with the ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Madam Clerk, do we have any callers on the line?
Chair Bullock, we have 4 callers for general public comment.
Okay, let's take the first caller.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Kiana. I'm a District 1 resident of over 20 years. I would also like to echo and call that a ceasefire resolution be put on the agenda. It is deeply saddening that we are living in a time when American people feel that they need to commit self-immolation for their governments to listen to them. That does not seem like a democratic government to me. Polls across the country show that 68% of likely voters support a sustained and permanent ceasefire, yet our government continues to veto the ceasefire resolutions and send continued military aid to Israel. This is why we're here, because we're looking for other avenues to use our voices to bring about change. During the time that I've personally spent canvassing in this county, I want you to know that the response has been extremely positive. I was bracing myself for varied and angry reactions, but I was relieved to find that almost every person I spoke to not only signed in support of the ceasefire resolution, but expressed their gratitude for what we were doing. Their responses have reaffirmed for me that most of the people in this community do stand against the genocide being perpetrated against the Palestinian people with our tax dollars. It has reaffirmed for me why we are at these meetings, where we will continue to show up and we will continue to do everything we can to convince you as our representative leadership that the majority of this community does support this ceasefire resolution. We are continuing to protest, to call our Congress members to boycott, and they are not listening. Please help us amplify our voices as a community. Please help us register the extent of our refusal to be complicit in this genocide that gets more and more dire by the day. And please let us work together to put this resolution on the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in with your comments. Madam Clerk, can we take one more caller, please?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Jason Miller. I'm a local business owner and a practicing Jew, and I'm calling to commend the board on their decision to stay focused on local politics. I know that there's been a lot of noise about a ceasefire resolution 4,000 miles away, but I can tell you as a former member of the Free Palestine movement and a progressive Jew, this is rooted in ignorance. Even Yasmin stands here and tells you that she's for safety of everybody when there's a video of her attacking local Jews. So I think that people are only as good as the information they get, and nobody wants to see anybody dying anymore. If the Israelis are returned, if the children are returned, the war will stop. There was a ceasefire in place. And calling for a ceasefire now is asking Israel to stop looking for their kids. This is a conflict far away, and I commend you on your decision to stay focused on local politics. Please don't let this divide our local community any further. Thank you.
Jason, thank you for calling in with your comments today. Let's do one more caller, and then we'll go back here to the chambers.
Okay.
Hello, I think it's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name.
I'm not sure. Okay, my name is Jelena Smith. I'm a District 3 resident. I've lived here for over 40 years, and I'll make my comment brief just to make sure everyone gets a turn. I'm just calling in support of a ceasefire, and I agree with all of the reasons that the others have said, that this is a local issue and it's important to make a stand and to listen to your constituents that are the vast majority of this town, from my experience, are wanting this, and to at least put this on your agenda as a discussion item so that you can talk about this with your community. So I just wanted to add my voice to the others asking you to put a ceasefire resolution on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Tara Marino, and I'm a resident of Grass Valley, District 1. I work at a local nonprofit serving, fighting food insecurity and serving our most vulnerable community members. I'm here to ask that the Board of Supervisors adds to the next meeting's agenda a resolution for a permanent ceasefire, end U.S. military aid to Israel, condemn all forms of hate, including anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and finally allow humanitarian aid into Gaza to end starvation and torture of Palestinians. The videos, photos, firsthand accounts of completely shattered families are sights and sounds that I never thought I'd witness at the hands of our government, paid for with our tax dollars, rather than putting that money towards housing and feeding our own community members. Our freedom of speech is slipping through the cracks as people are being paralyzed by fear of being ostracized or terminated if they speak out against genocide. The gaslighting has been absolutely mind-blowing. We watch the decimation of Gaza and people suffer the worst imaginable deaths and injuries, with our US and Israeli leaders saying they're doing everything possible to avoid civilian casualties. I never thought I'd be forced to become desensitized to seeing dead babies and maimed children because of the constant feed of loss and suffering. And I refuse for that to happen to myself, which is why I am here today, pleading in front of you to do the right thing. I'm just going to close there and just please add a ceasefire resolution to the next agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Gottesman. I'm a Nevada City resident, and I also represent the Peace and Justice Center of Nevada County. I'm here to request that you put the ceasefire agenda on the docket for the Board of Supervisors. I am a lifelong observant Jewish person who has volunteered working on a kibbutz in Israel, and I grew up with a lot of love for Israel. I was like so many others. I was the object of a huge propaganda campaign that said that Israel was the land with no was a people with no land in a land with no people. But the truth of the matter is that what Israel has done since 1948 is a massive ethnic cleansing campaign. And this didn't start October 7th. This began in 1948 with 750,000 Palestinians ethnically cleansed and many more thereafter. And many of the people who live in Gaza are the descendants of those people. I'd also like to say that I feel a lot of personal shame about what my people are doing in this horrendous, brutal genocide. I'd like you to think about the child who's dying of gangrene from injuries that can't be treated because we've blown up all the hospitals with our bombs and their soldiers. I'd like you to think about the children who are undergoing surgery for removing their injured limbs with no anesthesia. That's what saying that this is a local issue amounts to. This is not a local issue. We are coming to you, the Board of Supervisors, because our federal government has failed us. A barrage of Israel lobby money keeps our federal government at bay. And we need a grassroots movement, starting with you. The courage to speak out, even though it may cost you in the long run. The courage to speak out against what you know is wrong.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm going to hold you just one sec there, Madam Clerk. Do we have one more caller?
Chair, you have 3 callers.
Okay, let's take 2 callers and then we'll go back in.
Okay,
Chambers.
thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Charlie. I'm a resident of District 1. I'm asking the Board of Supervisors to please add a ceasefire resolution to the agenda. We are more than 4 months into this genocide now, and we're really looking for our community to uplift our voices. I've heard from multiple different leaders of the community saying how adding a ceasefire resolution won't actually doing anything. And so why divide the community if for something that won't change? And I would argue that anytime we uplift our voices to stand against evil, which is genocide, and stand against the horrible wrongdoings that Israel and the United States are perpetuating, is doing something. Maybe it won't change anything immediately, but we have to put our voices behind what is right. And what is right is to call to end this genocide. Please, please, please add a ceasefire resolution to the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call, Julie.
Chair, we'll go ahead and do the next caller now.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Abraham Valinsky. I'm a resident of Nevada County, District 4. I'm here to speak with you about 3 topics. First of all, is the false information and biased media. Many members of this community are exposed to false claims and biased information. It's very sad and upsetting to hear such claims, but it's not true. I'm asking for everyone to be more critical of what they see and what they hear and where it's coming from. The second thing is, I want to talk about the ceasefire that's being talked about. Israel wants a ceasefire, but for that to happen, the Hamas has to put down all of their weapons and stop shooting and killing. All hostages must be returned with no conditions. If these requests happen, I guarantee Israel will go into a ceasefire. The next thing that needs to happen, the Hamas needs to stop wanting and educating for the death of Israel. I'm requesting the Board of Supervisors not to pass any resolution on Israel. This may cause more hate and more anti-Semitic behavior against the Jewish community that's suffered enough. And to finish, I'm really in shock by hearing some of the Jewish people here talk about Israel. It's shaming. Thank you.
Thanks, Abraham. Go ahead, sir. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jesse Sabin. I'm a voter in District 1, and I am a volunteer advocate for human rights in Palestine. And I also am concerned for the safety and well-being of the hostages taken by Hamas on October 7th. And I want to point out that IDF has killed more of these hostages with their reckless bombing than they have been able to rescue, while hundreds of them were released through prisoner exchange. And if we assume for a second that all of the allegations, all of the alleged atrocities of October 7th are 100% true, it still does not justify collective punishment of civilians. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Good morning. Hey, I'm Court Warden, District 4. Like you said, the Warden appeal, we did withdraw the appeal starting yesterday morning. We had been in constant correspondence with both county staff and some of the directors, the CDA directors, respectively. And I think we got all of our questions answered as of Monday morning. However, the neighborhood's still concerned with the burden of liability that we are receiving. It's shared. We're here to share the load for the county. And what we're going to do is give you guys some of the personal testimony from the previous ranch owners, because right now, still on the books, and it's still going forward for the residential development plan, right? However, there's barns that were built in the 1990s that, I guess because of the applicant's testimony, that they said, hey, these 1990 barns are actually, they predate 1962, which is when the planning department came into fruition, right? So those things are all grandfathered in, right? You can understand the concern in our neighborhood where people are getting canceled for their homeowners day after day, and now the county is here to say, hey, we're going to use decades-old UBCs to turn an old unpermitted horse barn into an apartment. That to us is very concerning. My property line, I'm 30 feet from this unpermitted horse barn. And so we've met with county staff. They want to go forward with it, which we know that in Nevada County we've got a housing issue, right? But to take old unpermitted horse barns and turn that into a real estate development plan and lay the burden on the neighborhood, I think that's a real foul. So today we just want to leave the testimony of the people who built the barns back in the 60s, and then additionally the people who built the barns in the 90s, to say there was never a residential living quarters in any of these barns. These are unpermitted horse barns, right? And then also to get back to the commercial cannabis, to me in Nevada County right now, it is more complicated. If you want to set up a youth-oriented facility, a daycare for instance, that requires a discretionary permitting plan, correct? Meanwhile, commercial cannabis is only an administrative development plan. So you check the boxes, you submit your application, and you're good to go. My question is, why is commercial cannabis not a discretionary approval plan? And I'd love to hear back from county staff or whoever the case may be, but in that case, we would not have to pay the $2,000 to appeal. We wouldn't have to retain attorneys to get the truth, only to see that the applicants finally end up pulling the cannabis permit after 4 years of the county staff wasting countless hours of staffing resources. So that's another question that I'd like to hear some more fidelity. Why is this not a discretionary process? And then lastly, we're also looking forward to hearing any updates to the exclusionary zones. I know several people in the neighborhoods and a couple other appeals that are on the docket here. They're all looking forward to hearing the follow-up to the Board of Supervisor workshop. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, for your comments. Madam Clerk, do we have a few callers again?
Chair, we have one caller.
Okay, let's take the caller and then we'll come back to the chambers.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shirley. I'm a resident of Nevada County for the past over a decade. I'd like to speak about this Free Palestine movement we have locally. While I feel like it's clear to say all of us Israeli locals are for ceasefire. The only issue here is that we do not call the demolishing of Israel, and we do not bully others in our town that do not agree with us. We have dialogue with people. And we've been experiencing extreme bullying out of that movement while they're denying it. They're fostering and giving an umbrella to extreme people who hold extreme hatred towards Jewish people while calling them Zionists. I have here a list of events that happened since November this year. In our town, a woman was spat on in her face in front of her children for speaking Hebrew in Safeway. A worker in a restaurant got a threatful, hateful note in a tip jar. Members of the community were assaulted outside the Briar Patch, being told that they're not welcome there by their assailant. Another incident at the Briar Patch where a Jew was falsely accused of harassment proved wrong by the video footage of the co-op. Kids bullied at school, hate notes left in their backpacks, Jews being blocked from entering council meetings while being yelled at with atrocious slogans like "From the River to the Sea," Intifada, ISIS liberation, and "I would have joined Hamas if I could." Inside council meetings, Zionist lies signs repeatedly held while events of October 7th were being spoken of. Callers called in proclaiming Israel should not exist. These people are finally getting some karma. Do I feel bad about what happened on October 7th? Not one bit. Kill all niggers, kill all Jews, Heil Hitler. I support the KPP. Dozens of cases of hate speech. Please see the videos of city council meetings starting October 7th forward for more details. Jewish members were followed to their cars from those council meetings, intimidated, and photographed. Numerous graffitis were reported and taken care of by the police in our town. This is just a list of these past few months, and we are experiencing their manipulation. They are going around town asking people to sign their petition.
Looks like we lost a caller there. Was that the 3 minutes? Okay, yeah, thank you. Go ahead, sir, thanks.
Excuse me. My name is Cody Painter. I'm a fifth-generation resident of Nevada County, and I am here to call on this board to find their humanity in the great moral issue of our times. And as evidence of that, I just want to tell you a story about a little boy in Palestine this week. He was found lying under the wheel of a car. His parents were murdered. He's one of tens of thousands of orphans on the street starving to death right now and facing starvation and a complete decimation of his entire family. This little 5-year-old boy was lying under the wheel of a truck because he wanted to be done with this world. There has never been a clearer moral situation in all of my life. So I'm calling on us to even these small symbolic gestures, if it's all we have, then we have to take it. I am calling on you guys, please, do everything you can to show your humanity. It's not okay, and people are suffering.
Thanks for your comments, Cody.
Good morning. I'm Bernie Zimmerman. I'm a resident of District 5, and I'm here speaking purely in my personal capacity. I was here last week on a Landmarks Commission matter, and I was troubled by much of what I heard. I got in line to speak, but public comment was cut off a little after 10, and I couldn't come back in the afternoon, so I'm here today. Let me first say that I'm not a supporter of the current Israeli government, and I'm appalled by many of the things that they've done in recent years. And I deplore the current violence in Gaza, but I think it's important to understand why it happened. And I think a lot of what you heard last week, and perhaps even this morning, was, I think, either misguided or misinformed. it's not about freeing Palestine. If the Palestinians wanted freedom, all they had to do was accept the two-state solution that was on the table 25 years ago, and their negotiators rejected it. Still, Israel pulled out of Gaza a few years after that, so it was free. And what did the Gazans do? They elected a government led by Hamas, and Hamas's constitution mandates the destruction of Israel. So the voters knew when they elected it that they were facing fighting, they were facing war, they were facing violence. And this is just the latest example of it. What happened on October 7th, I think that was the correct date, as I say, is just the latest chapter of what the Gazans voted for back in either 2005 or 2006. Keep in mind, no Gazan children would have been killed if Israeli children had not been killed first. I am skeptical of municipalities enacting resolutions which address foreign policy, which under our Constitution is the province of our federal government. But if this body is inclined to do that, I urge you to consider a solution which I think would solve the problem. Hamas comes out of its tunnels, Hamas releases the hostages, Hamas either fights, surrenders, or goes to a third country if they can find one. I also have found personally offensive the repeated use of the word genocide. It demeans the memories of the 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis, of the 1 million Armenians who died in 1915, of the 500,000 or so Tutsis who died in Rwanda. It would be the first time that the word genocide has been used, has been applied not to
Bernie, thanks for your comments.
My name is Alisa Wowski, and I am a resident of Nevada County and have been for over 20 years. And like so many others in this room, across this county and this country, I also would like to advocate for a ceasefire to be put on the agenda. Thank you.
Lisa, thanks for your comments. Madam Clerk, are there any other callers?
We have 2 callers, Chair.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead and
Hello?
take that caller.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, you're with us. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Libby Woods, District 4. I'm calling on behalf of the rest of those in the group calling for a ceasefire and to be put on the agenda. And I really want to reiterate that this is a genocide. We're not the only ones using this term. All of the human rights campaigns and all of the even the International Court of Justice is calling this a genocide. So I just want to dispute that comment right off the bat. And I want to speak in defense of some of our local organizers have been attacked and called really offensive things in regards to this work. And we've had a really intense experience working with people who are opposing us. So yeah, this needs to be put on the agenda. We need to be addressing this as a community. It's affecting all of us. Free Palestine.
Thank you for your call. Another caller.
Hi, my name is Ethan Cameron. I live in District 1, and I am calling to request that the ceasefire resolution be put on the agenda and passed by the board. Thank you very much to all of you for your service and support to our community.
Ethan, thanks for calling in with your comment today. Go ahead and, did you have more? Okay, I think Ethan's done. Thank you, sir. You can step up to the podium.
All right.
Or sorry.
My name is Ian. I live in Grass Valley. I've already spoken at like 5 Nevada City Council meetings and 5 or 6 Grass Valley Council meetings. I spoke here. I've been talking to all our local representatives, having to sit through a lot of weak excuses, and so I'm exhausted, and I was just going to come up here and say I support a ceasefire resolution. But, you know, the first thing we heard this morning was a lot, so I just want to address some of that. Claiming that advocating for a ceasefire and for lasting peace is anti-Jewish implies that ethnic cleansing and genocide are Jewish values, and that is anti-Semitic. Calling for a ceasefire is not asking for Israelis to stop searching for their children. As Israelis well know, their government is not invested in protecting their children or their hostages. They've been protesting for months, Netanyahu's administration, that would rather decimate Gaza than save any of the hostages. Israel has rejected many deals. That's just clearly not their priority, and it's a distraction that we don't need to give any weight to anymore. Also, we heard that there was a ceasefire on October 6th, ceasefire before that, ceasefire before that. On October 6th, there was a Palestinian child murdered in the West Bank. I don't think that's a ceasefire. Palestinians have been murdered since 1948. There was never a ceasefire from the colonial project that was conquering their lands, kicking them out, murdering them. Also, one of our organizers, Yasmin, has just been enduring countless attacks against her character. She won't bring any of this up because during her 3 minutes, she doesn't want to center herself. She wants to focus on the bigger issues. But she's been the victim of so much harassment out in this town for being visible, for advocating for Palestinian rights. And a lot of these Zionists, they can't stop themselves from trying to attack a brown woman, like the only one in this room, the only one often in many rooms. It's very clear that a lot of these attacks are purely racist, and I'm just really disappointed in that. We also heard that these people elected Hamas, and so they deserve what happened. That election was 17, 18 years ago, and 50% of the population of Gaza was born after that. So their murders are in no way justified by the government that other people elected. We also heard that their charter says kill all Jews. It does not. That is an outright lie. The Hamas charter affirms that their issue is with the Zionist state, not with Jews. I'm so disappointed that we have to keep hearing these things in these councils, these vicious lies about rape and mutilation that do nothing but harm survivors in this town. Please affirm that our county does stand against hatred, that we want a ceasefire, that we want peace, that we are opposed to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Chair, we have one additional comment on the call, on the phone.
Yeah, we'll take the caller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynette, and I am a homeowner and a resident of District 1. I fully support a ceasefire being added to the agenda. Previous statements today by residents who are opposing a ceasefire resolution are specifically targeting a woman of color in our community for saying genocide is bad. As a nurse, I am appalled at the images I have seen coming out of Gaza and cannot believe that we are not adding a ceasefire to our agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynette, for calling in. Any other commenters, public comment here in the chamber? Want to step up to the podium and talk? Okay. Any other callers?
No further callers.
Okay. With that, we'll close public comment for today. We're going to move on to our consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. The Board of Supervisors will act upon them at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Members of the public wishing to ask questions or hear discussion on items listed under the consent agenda may now raise their concerns to the board members. The supervisors will take these concerns under consideration and decide if there is adequate reason to remove the item from consent. And I'll just address the board members now and see if anybody would like to pull anything off of the consent calendar. No? Okay. Nothing. Okay. So seeing that, I'm going to ask to pull number 13, the Donner Pass Road item. And I'd also like to make a recusal from items 3, 4, and 5 by owned property used by Bright Futures for Youth, so I'm not going to vote on 3, 4, and 5. With that, I could entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar except for item number 13.
Chair, I also wanted to point out we have no callers for public comment on consent.
Thank you for reminding me.
So moved.
Second.
Supervisor Hook, second. Supervisor, excuse me, Schofield. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
District 2?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes. Awesome. Thanks. I pulled number 13 to just give a quick shout out. I don't know if Patrick's in the room. I know, oh, he is. Oh, Patrick's hiding back there. Hey, Patrick, could you come up? Thank you. I just wanted to make note that we had Old Highway 40 under construction for several years, and that was a fully planned and executed project. The project was great, but it did close the road for our entire Soda Springs community for a couple years. And then following that, we had this massive winter that, again, closed the road for the winter. And then when we all thought, hey, it's summertime, we're going to open up the road, and we're all going to get to enjoy Old 40, a big, huge boulder fell off. We call it road cut, but I think there's another name for that area. And it crushed the road and closed the road again, and then that whole community was, again, closed. And I know that CEO and the clerk of the board staff did a lot of outreach in that community, so thank you to everybody who was a part of that. But your team, Patrick, essentially was called at night to hit the ground running and go out and deal with the boulders. So I just want to say a public thank you and let you acknowledge your staff members. I think Colton Gould, Randy Pillow, and Tyler DeShane and Bob Hoskin were all part of your team. And I'll just turn it over to you to say a few thank yous really quick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was quite the series of events between the road being worked on for multiple years. Like you said, the big winter, and then all of a sudden we think everything's good to go, and then a 40-ton boulder drops off and closes the road, and people were just like, really? Of all the things that had to happen. But there was a really big group effort that went into this. A lot of support from the board, from the CEO's office, from the road crew, getting contracts out, having people out there as fast as we could possibly get them done. And the folks that you mentioned from road crew were extremely helpful in getting the rocks moved out. We also had a lot of intricacies with the project. It wasn't just as simple as going and moving a rock off the road, because there's intercontinental fiber optics that run right through that exact section, all the 911 lines that supply information back and forth in between the states all run through there. So there was a lot of little pieces that we had to keep in mind. But again, team effort, a lot of support from everybody. So thank you. We appreciate everything. And thank you for bringing it up today, and be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, just, sincere appreciation to you and your team. And I just want to note, these were boulders the size of cars, and going into that work, not knowing the stability of that area, yet your team went in there, working with experts, working long days, to make sure that we ensured public safety and to move that project forward as quickly as we could. So really thank you for your leadership on that and putting community safety first.
Yeah, I remember I was breathing down the back of Patrick's neck, constantly trying to open the road. It was climbing season and hiking season, every season, right, that has to do with that area. So thank you again so much, and please pass along our appreciation. Any words from the board anybody would like to add in? Okay, thanks again, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I'll just entertain a motion to approve number 13.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
District 2?
Yes.
District 4?
District 4, yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes. Okay, item number 13. This is George Shurik, our acting public works director. Oh, I'm sorry. I am skipping. Sorry, give me a second. Yep, Sand District. Wow, yeah. George thought he was about ready to jump up and start talking.
Public comment is closed.
Sorry. Yeah, we're going to open up the Sanitation District 1. Sorry, I'm missing one page here, apparently. 2, 3. Give me just 1 second. Page 5, okay. Thank you. We're going to recess as the Nevada County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Nevada County Sanitation District Number 1 Board of Directors. We'll call the meeting to the order. Call meeting to order, and the consent calendar.
Move for approval.
Motion to approve the consent calendar?
Second.
Sorry.
Chair. Yes, can you ask for public comment?
Public comments. Any? Yep, any public comment on consent for Sanitation District 1? Seeing none, seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and move to the consent calendar for Sanitation District 1.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
District 2,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. Okay. We will go ahead and adjourn as the Nevada County Sanitation District.
Chair,
Yeah, correct me.
Chair Bullock, let's go ahead and go to general public comment for NCSD before we move
Thank you.
on.
General public comment for the NCSD 1 board. Any general public comment now? Seeing none? Now I think I'm going to look at you when I say this. Can we adjourn Sanitation District 1? Now that I messed that up, thank you. Thanks for your patience, everybody, with me today. With that, we're going to move on to department head matters. This is number 22, Director of Social Services, Rachel Pena. This is an informational presentation from Connecting Points 211, recognizing February 11th as 211 Day in Nevada County and proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors again from previously back in 2021.
So while we recruit our social services director, Rachel Pena, who will be down here shortly, I would like to invite down our really valuable partners from Connecting Point 211, so who will be providing you an overview and a presentation. 211 not only is our local information resource go-to for people to get information services, but it also is a critical service during emergencies. They're tightly linked to our EOC providing residents real-time information. So really pleased to have staff here to provide an overview and to celebrate 211 Day. So thank you. And Rachel, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Anyway, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, as you know, February 11th was 211 Day. It was celebrated by over 200 211s throughout the country who connect over 90% of our nation to vital information about health and human services. Also helps communities navigate emergencies, and we're here today to really celebrate the very, very best of them, which is our own 211 operated by Connecting Point. So I wanted to introduce Tim Giuliani and Lindsay. So.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, board. Thanks, Allison, for the introduction, and thank you, Rachel. My name is Tim Giuliani. I'm the executive director of Connecting Point, and Connecting Point is a Connecting Point is a partner of Nevada County, and we do various programs. We serve as the In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority. We work with the CalWorks community to help with jobs and housing, and we help with youth find employment. We serve as the administrators for the HMIS, Housing Management Information System software, and we do short-term disaster case management with FEMA contracts. But we're here today to talk about 211, so thank you for entertaining that real quickly. I'm going to turn it to Lindsay to talk briefly about our 211 program, and we can entertain questions at the end.
Good morning. I'm Lindsay Gordon. I'm the 211 Program Manager at Connecting Point. Thank you so much for having us today.
Make sure the mic's planted right there, close to your.
How do I change slides?
Oh, good.
There we go. Okay, so what is 211? 211 is an information and referral provider who can use information and referral. Everyone can at some point in their lives. Who provides INR, or information and referral, is independent nonprofits, libraries, and organizations like 211. How INR works is INR providers create and maintain databases of vetted resources, and they provide advocacy, assistance, and referrals to the community through various channels, including, as applicable to us, by calling 211, by texting your zip code to 898-211, or you can find us on the web. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our database. It's maintained by our Connecting Point resource team. We have resources within and serving Nevada County. And as of currently, we have a total of 2,345 database resource records. That includes 763 agencies, 1,479 programs at 103 sites. We verify those resources annually at a minimum, and in 2023, we verified 1,392 resources. So you can be sure that the information is up to date and current. And then that populates our website at 211connectingpoint.org. All right, so let's talk a little bit about housing and homelessness assistance with 211. We are the coordinated entry provider for Nevada County. We had 931 coordinated entries in 2023. And coordinated entry is the process for those who are experiencing homelessness and seeking long-term housing. It populates what's known as the by names list, and that is the waiting list to be connected with housing providers who can support those in need of housing. Oh, and I'll add that we do have a coordinated entry online tool that housing providers can use if they feel they have a rapport with their client or they want to go ahead and do that process with them. Instead of having them call 211, housing providers can complete the online tool that gets submitted to us, and we put the data into the homeless management information system. So that's really no wrong door approach. And then additional basic needs referrals and services. So another service that we provide in Nevada County is CalFresh applications. So referrals come through 211 to our Connecting Point navigators to get folks signed up for CalFresh, employment services, which as Tim mentioned is part of our CalWorks program. We do senior navigation for seniors with complex needs, and we do travel training. So I'll talk a little bit about travel training and trip planning. That's a contract that we have with Caltrans, and it allows us to provide training to people who have barriers to accessing transportation and maybe aren't comfortable riding the bus. A lot of seniors use it, and our travel trainer will go do trainings with groups, maybe a group of seniors who want to go see a movie once a week, or maybe a senior couple who wants to take the bus to the grocery store once a week. Our travel trainer will actually meet with them, ride the bus with them, make sure they have everything they need from water, sunscreen, snacks. They know their stops, they know if they need to transfer, and she'll continue to ride the bus with them until they're comfortable doing so on their own. So really, for so many people, it's been really opening a door to getting them out and about again, and the community is really happy with it. We also do vaccination scheduling, whether it's flu, COVID boosters. We do COVID supportive service referrals for individuals who have COVID and need to isolate. And we send a referral over to social services, and they can get them set up with medication, groceries, without them having to leave the house and put the community at risk. Again, I mentioned CalFresh sign up, and we are a health access vending machine partner for those harm reduction vending machines that public health has created. All right, so I already talked a little bit about travel training, but I'll just go a bit further and say that in 2023, we trained 33 seniors. We provided 1 discount card drop-off. We completed 5 individual assessments to prepare consumers for ride-alongs with our travel trainer. And then trip planning, which is a little bit different. That's when folks call us and maybe we give them a referral to, say, Western Sierra Medical Center, for example. And maybe they don't have transportation. So we're gonna help them plan their route based on where they live, what's the closest bus stop to them, do they need to get to the transfer station, but we're gonna help them get there to their appointment on time and plan that trip. All right, so one of the biggest things we do is disaster services and respond to disasters. So that can be wildfire, that can be extreme winter weather, PSPS, and PSOM events. So we are the disaster call center for Nevada County. We have a disaster portal that can allow us to securely send referrals and escalations to our disaster partners, which are PG&E, the county, and FREED, our local ILC. We also do PSPS and PG&E screening and care coordination. So to elaborate on what that is our care coordinator helps create a safety plan for PG&E customers who feel that they're not prepared to withstand an outage lasting anywhere from 3 hours to 4 days. So it's a pretty lengthy plan. Those calls usually take about 45 minutes to an hour, but she goes through and makes sure they have everything that they need to evacuate, to shelter in place, know your 5, even things you wouldn't think about, like if you keep your car in a garage and you're having a power outage, make sure you pull your car out onto the street before any planned outage. And then PSOM screening for DDAR resources, that's disability access, disaster disability and access resources. We provide escalations to FREED, again, our local ILC, who can assist with hotel rooms, backup batteries, gas and propane vouchers, and more for seniors and individuals with disabilities and chronic conditions. Then a little bit about our active response. We handled 5,178 river fire calls in 2021. We handled 5,717 winter storm calls in 2022 and 2,161 winter storm calls last year, not this most recent February storm we had. Another specialized program that we do in Nevada County is called Ready to Grow. It's a partnership between Connecting Point and First 5 Nevada County, and it focuses on early intervention and providing resources to families with small children ages 0 to 5. So we do case management with referrals to child care providers, pediatricians, food programs, parenting classes, playgroups, and much, much more. We refer these clients to navigators who are interested in completing the ages and stages questionnaire to identify or help screen for developmental delays. During the fiscal year, we completed Ready to Grow case management with 56 different families. We provided over 1,500 Nevada County families with young children. I believe it was over 2,500 resources, apologies. And then we administered 20 ages and stages questionnaires. So we really focus on early intervention and adverse childhood experiences and kind of overcoming those. And another specialized program is a partnership with the California Department of Public Health. It's called Kick It California Tobacco Cessation Program. So we screen Nevada County callers for tobacco use within the household. We refer tobacco users interested in quitting to the Kick It California helpline. The referrals are sent electronically to Kick It California. Kick It California offers completely free counseling, nicotine patches, nicotine gum, and additional cessation tools. And callers receive a $20 gift card for completing just one counseling session. So there's a little bit of incentive there. I'll add that that gift card cannot be used to purchase tobacco products. We utilize social media, of course, for this and all of our programs. So we are constantly posting about quitting vaping, quitting smoking, in addition to other programs like disaster services, a list of California, that type of stuff. So now I want to talk about growth within the Tahoe Truckee area. So as you can see, I started at Connecting Point in 2018, and we didn't get many calls at all from that area. And so I really saw that as an area where we needed to focus our outreach and a huge area of opportunity. But COVID struck and they kind of did the outreach for us. COVID did. We got a ton of callers who had vacation or rental properties there, and needed to know about the guidance and the mandates. And so you can see 2020, 2021 really reflect that increase in calls. But even as those COVID calls have really died down, we still see an increase in the Tahoe Truckee area. So pretty significant. We still have some ground to cover up there. But I did want to note that the top needs in this area during 2023 included housing, utility assistance, and disaster services. And this is what I'm really proud of. So what you're looking at here is call volume per 100,000 residents by county. And Nevada County 211 is often #1 in California in terms of population penetration. So per 100,000, we have, and this is reflective of January 2022 through January 2023, we had 24,881 calls per 100,000 residents, even ahead of 211 San Diego, which is kind of like the gold standard that all the 211s aspire to. So very proud of this. It really speaks to not only our service level, but the level of need within the community. And we're super happy to be a part of that.
So you can see that we have various funding sources, state, federal, and you guys are the backbone of this. So thank you for your partnership throughout the years. And I'd like to take a quick second to thank Allison for her leadership when she was the social service director. It was her vision and leadership that got this ball moving. So it was, you can see the growth that we've had, and we're very proud of the service that we do.
All right, so with that, I will just add that in calendar year 2023, 211 handled 18,683 calls and texts from Nevada County residents. Again, we are 24/7, 365 days a year, so you can access us anytime, day or night. Always a live CSR available. You can call us by dialing 211 or 833-342-5211. And you can reach us by texting your zip code to 898-211, or you can access us via live web chat through the 211connectingpoint.org website. And with that, I just want to thank you all for having us, and I'd be happy to address any questions that anyone may have.
Thanks, Lindsay and Tim and Rachel, for bringing it forward. Yeah, it was great to see that information. There's a lot, a very comprehensive list of things you do for our community. Let's just ask questions, and then we'll go to public comment and then bring it back to board for dialogue. Anybody on the dais have questions for Tim or Lindsay? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Amazing how much stuff you're doing, really, and that the word has gotten out. I love this travel training effort. That's fascinating. I had no idea you were doing that, but it's such an obvious, small probably, but obvious need for especially elderly or folks who just don't know how to get around on public transportation. And then the COVID support efforts that you're doing as well. This is really, all of this is really great. I'm just wondering, as I was looking at this, I'm wondering how many calls you get for people looking for mental health services and how you handle those.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but we do handle quite a bit of crisis calls. We adhere to what's called, used to be called AIRS, it's now called Inform USA, and it's kind of like the governing body that sets standards for 211 or INR providers to follow. So we follow their crisis procedures. Of course, while our call agents have been trained in motivational interviewing and trauma-informed care, the goal is with a crisis caller to get them connected to a mental health crisis line right away. But that said, we do incorporate into our contact form or our call report a lethality assessment that kind of guides the call agent as to next steps. So if we're talking to someone who's suicidal, maybe they have a plan and the means to enact it, we are going to get law enforcement involved immediately. Interestingly, I would say the bulk of our crisis calls, or maybe not so interestingly, but they happen in the night, in the middle of the night. We get them in the day too, but yeah, certainly there are often crisis calls in the night. Our call agents know that myself and the contact center manager are available anytime to support them. We can actually hop onto the call and listen in. We can take over the call, but we certainly want to be there to support the call agent and make sure that the caller, the person experiencing a crisis, knows what's available to them, gets in touch with mental health resources, even if it's the crisis stabilization unit, which we often refer. But yeah, certainly since COVID, we've seen an increase and it hasn't decreased.
Are you able, in the case where you do an assessment that somebody's in maybe some danger or concerned, are you able to do sort of a warm handoff to stay on the line with them and then transfer
Yes.
the call until somebody else is on the line with them?
Absolutely. We actually, so with every caller, we offer a warm transfer. Specifically with crisis calls or mental health crisis calls, we facilitate that warm transfer. So we don't want to re-traumatize the caller by making them tell their whole story again. We built that rapport. So we kind of do the introduction. We'll call the organization and say, hey, I've got this individual on the line. Here's what we've been talking about. Then we'll connect the two. And when they've started talking, we'll let the caller know, okay, are you ready for us to disconnect now? We're going to leave you in the hands of XYZ. And once we've got that consent, we'll go ahead and leave the line.
And after the warm transfer, we follow up on those calls as well.
Absolutely.
So we do follow up on those.
And that's going to come into play actually with some of the new mental health requirements. Actually, that's, so you have a system to do follow-up that actually may be
Absolutely.
super helpful for us in the future as well. Great. And maybe you said that, how many employees do you have?
So let's see, we have 7 full-time call agents, myself as the program manager, a contact center manager. We have 3 after-hours agents, 2 part-time call agents. And then during disasters, we have to ramp up very quickly. We can go from about 200 calls a day to 1,000 a day with a single code red message. So.
And I'll note that we serve more than just Nevada County. We serve Placer County and have recently contracted for Tehama, Shasta, and Siskiyou counties.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot for your staff to handle. Are you able to keep staff? Do you have, are folks sticking around?
We have a tremendous, we have a tremendous
Yeah,
staff.
so
I don't think we have anyone who's been there under, our newest call agent just celebrated 1 year. And then we have our most tenured call agent, Alice. She was actually the call center manager before me. She retired with CalPERS, but she came back to work part-time. But most of our staff has been with us 4 or 5 years. We really feel like a family, even though we're working remotely. We have a Teams channel where we're communicating all the time. We're actually doing a team building bowling event coming up here pretty soon. So we really like to keep that connection. And I think that's a lot of incentive for folks to stay. Plus, Connecting Point's a great organization to work for.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much. Please extend our thanks to the staff. This is really hard work you're doing. It's almost like a 911 call, and I just appreciate so much that they're making themselves so available for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sue.
Thanks, Hardy. Yeah, I don't have any questions. I'd just like to say thank you again to the work that you do daily is amazing. But then during an emergency, the weight load you take off of 911 is incredibly important. And I love being able to share 211 with my constituents. It's a place to go because you can send them in so many directions. You know, sometimes you go on our website and they're just like quite not, well, where do I get this? Where do I get that? But yet they can call you and you can specify exactly who need to call, have the numbers. And it does. I have a lot of constituents that thank me for having made sure they knew about 211. And I do think it needs to be a household number because it's
Agreed.
really incredible. I just talked to a lady this morning. I said, call theirs. They can tell you all those avenues and send you in the right direction. And again, during emergencies, on top of everything else that your operators know and understand, that's what's amazing to me, the broad amount of information that you deal with on a daily basis, and you keep up onto that. So no questions, just a kudos and thank you. And really, like Heidi said, thank your team. It's amazing what they do produce and how they work so collaboratively all through many different counties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Frankly, I had no idea how many programs that you were involved with. You know, you tend to think of, well, don't call 911, call 211. And I was familiar with a couple of the programs, but not all of them by any means. And it makes you wonder, I mean, how the heck do you coordinate all that? Or even like, okay, I want to quit smoking. If somebody says that to me, why would I say, oh, call 211, they'll take care of it, they'll help you with that. It's like, it just doesn't, you're much broader than I expected, that I actually even knew. And then I kind of question, Placer, Tehama, and how are you coordinating and taking on that much more?
It's great partnerships with, the leaders here in Nevada County and the leaders in the various counties, great staff doing great work. And we have a really high bar, making sure that we don't have high wait times. And we pride ourselves in really low wait times. And I think that, these other counties can see the value in that.
But if you have, say, at a disaster time when your call numbers go up to 1,000, will they now go up to like 3,000? And do you have the people to accommodate that?
Absolutely. We have disaster operations in plan where we have trained all of our staff on answering disaster calls, and we can kind of pull on that. We have partners here at the county that have stepped in to help out with calls, so we have had experience with having a disaster on two fronts. The mosquito fire, I think, in Placer and the river fire in Placer and Nevada counties.
Yeah, right.
And we had to do both sides of the counties, and we did a really good, I believe.
We did a great job.
We did a really good job with low wait times and satisfying callers.
And definitely these winter storms, they affect both counties. And so, strong partnerships with the OES. We report the unmet needs during these disasters in real time to both counties to help inform decisions that may be made around resources, or just so that they know what the needs are in the community, the unmet needs.
And I want to thank you guys for allowing us to, in these disasters, able to staff up, right, to meet that need. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important for us.
Well, thank you guys so much for the work you do, Tim. Lindsay?
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I just have one question. I had a call a couple weeks ago from somebody who was looking for assistance, rental assistance, but they weren't low income, just market rate. Do you have any processes or any programs for that?
Rental assistance is consistently a huge gap, especially for those who aren't currently homeless or facing imminent homelessness, haven't been evicted. And so our call agents are very good at thinking outside the box. So when they can't find a program for rental assistance, their mind immediately goes to how else can I help this person save money, right? So do they qualify for CalFresh? Do they qualify for Medi-Cal? Can they take advantage of a food bank? How can we free up some funds so that that can go towards their rent? Maybe they can get assistance with their utility bill through a PG&E program like REACH. So they get creative. If there's small children in the household, they'll maybe refer SNCC's Community Chest. But that's one of the things that I'm really proud of our call agents on, is that they can think outside the box. And when there's not a resource that's a perfect fit, they're gonna really peel the onion to find out, okay, everything about this person's situation and where can we help save money so that that can ideally help them pay their rent.
Yeah, well, let's open it up for public comment on the item. Any public in the chamber would like to say a few words? No? Any callers on line? No? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't have any questions. All my questions got answered. One of the questions I had was the change metrics on how the program was expanding or covering additional areas, not just Eastern County, but thank you for pointing that out. It was awesome to see that. Just about how the 211, I think about 4 years ago, I became aware of 211. I just wasn't exposed to it before then, but I've seen its popularity grow. And whenever I see you post something, I repost it on mine just to try and push it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's just great to see it expanding. So I think you answered all my questions. One question I did have is I know you, gosh, I'll just mention the comprehensive nature of what you provide. Like there's so many different things that you have to know about and where to look for quickly because somebody on the other end of the line is in need. So that's really commendable. What came to mind is the health van that we got. Do we ever send resources to certain neighborhoods, or do you have metrics like, okay, this one neighborhood is calling repetitively about vaccinations or access to some sort of health care, or do you run analytics on like areas of need?
We're very data driven, and we can pinpoint data to specific geographic locations. To all of our data is accessible, and if you have any questions or want data in any way, it's very easy for us to say these callers in this area are looking for this specific thing, right? Housing, et cetera. So yes.
Yes.
To answer your question, yes, we can do that.
The cities at Grass Valley, Nevada City, and Truckee, constituents benefit from all those services that are handled through both organizations. So if you call one of them, they'll probably refer you to the county and vice versa. There's a big network there. But in rural counties, we just have all these areas that are, like Washington, North San Juan, and areas in South County, and areas everywhere that, are kind of, we're their only backbone support is coming to the county, essentially speaking. So just was curious about that. Yeah, thank you so much for everything you've done, and I look forward to the presentation again. Any other
I have one comment that I just think is fun to mention. So the very first 211 call happened in this chamber by Supervisor Nate Beeson, and I want to say it was 16 years ago, if I'm correct. So it's just really inspiring to see the growth of the program, the professionalism of the program, and just what an important service that you're providing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one more comment.
Yeah, one more question.
I actually, it's not a question. I want to take advantage of this because we have a storm coming in.
Yes.
Maybe really big, and we haven't talked about that. And so for any folks who are listening, 211 is available if you get stuck, but please be prepared for the incoming storm. Thank you.
We are preparing for some on our end, right?
Yeah,
like if we need to staff up based on disaster circumstances, Lindsay and her team are
And we are
getting ready.
the home of the Tahoe Truckee COAD. So our partner in the COAD, and she pushed out some disaster readiness materials to the CBOs up there. But we have heard varying forecasts between 6 and 9 feet of snow. So we're certainly prepared to ramp up and assist the community with their needs.
Thank you. And if the projections are right, we may be getting snow all the way down here too.
I saw that.
I know.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
saw Ann's message to a bunch of different community stakeholders in East County, and it was comprehensive about our warming shelter and 211, all those other things. Thank you so much.
Thank
She's a
you.
vital key. I'm in a lot of meetings, and I look over, and there's Ann.
She's
working in
amazing.
Homelessness. She's working in a lot of different areas, so thanks for your support of that. One final question, we'll let you go. Do you have an office, or is it all remote?
No, we do have an office. We occupy the Laura Wilcox building here in Grass Valley.
They're located in a county facility off of Sutton.
Okay, thanks. Now I know. Thank you. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks for
again.
having us.
There's no action needed on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody
guys.
need a quick break before we go to the next item, and that will take us into item number 23. Anybody need a break? Okay. Let's move on to item number 23. This is Jeffrey Thorsby, Chief of Staff. acknowledgement of the Board of Supervisors 2024 ad hoc subcommittee assignments. We'll turn it over to Mr. Thorsby to take it away.
Honorable Chair Bullock, members of the board, pleasure to be with you here this morning. My name is Jeff Thorsby. I am your Chief of Staff Clerk of the Board, and I'm excited to provide an informational presentation to you today regarding ad hoc subcommittees. This would probably be a generally kind of a brief presentation, but we wanted to bring this presentation to you, and it really is an opportunity to provide greater transparency on some of the work that you do to help advise on some key critical issues for the county. All right, perfect. So what I want to do is I'm going to go through briefly kind of an overview, background, and purpose, and then talk a little bit about ad hoc specifically, and then outline the different, the 8 ad hoc subcommittees that have been designated by the chair for 2024. Here you'll see this is our board objective process. And while ad hoc subcommittees are not directly intrinsically linked to your board objective process, they are very much can be involved in different board priority objectives, but then also in other areas as identified by your board and by the chair. You can see, and so starting back in 2021, we started bringing forward an acknowledgement of the ad hoc subcommittees to provide greater transparency. And so that's why we're bringing this item before you today. And then, of course, I do want to just highlight the work that your board has done on its annual workshop just last month on January 17th to 19th. At your last board meeting, you adopted your board objectives. These, I'm not going to go through detail on these, but I just want to again remind how this can help shape. And as I go through the list of the different ad hoc subcommittees, you'll see several are going to be working on some of directly these areas. So what is an ad hoc subcommittee? I do want to just take a little bit of time to explain some of this. Ad hoc subcommittees are unique and somewhat different from the other little less than 40 committees that are part of the county's committees. Those are formal bodies that either provide action or recommendation across the spectrum of the organization. Then you have subcommittees, which can be a standing subcommittee, which is essentially a committee that is formed for the purpose of in perpetuity to be working on something. Then we have ad hoc subcommittees. Ad hoc subcommittees are advisory committees that are comprised of no more than 2 board members for a temporary purpose. Ad hoc subcommittees are formed at the discretion of the chair at any time for said designated purpose. So important to note that while we're bringing forward this acknowledgement, at any time the chair can create a new ad hoc, as well as ad hoc committees can dissolve before the end of the year. It's really identified within the purpose and purview of why that ad hoc subcommittee was formed. And of course, that last purpose is they can wind down, dissolve at the end of their purpose. One thing I do want to note is because there's a less than majority, and because they are temporary, and because they are advisory in nature only, they are not subject to general open meeting laws that your standing committees or your other committees and commissions are. So that's important to note. So real quick, I'll just kind of go through in brevity the different ad hoc subcommittees that have been designated thus far for 2024. Starting off, we have the Behavioral Health System of Care Ad Hoc Subcommittee. The purpose of this committee will be to identify and capitalize on opportunities for program and infrastructure investment in alignment with the current state of reforms. The 2 board members that are assigned to this would be Supervisor Hall and Supervisor Bullock. We also have a Cannabis Ad Hoc Subcommittee. And the purpose of this committee is to provide recommendations to staff on developing updates regarding the cannabis ordinance. And the members of this committee are Supervisor Schofield and Supervisor Swarthout. Moreover, we also have a Climate Resilience Ad Hoc Subcommittee focused on the Climate Adaptation Plan, which is the big initiative that we'll be working on regarding that board objective. And that purpose is to provide input and promote participation in the county's development of its CAAP moving forward. And the members of that ad hoc are Supervisor Bullock and Supervisor Hall. Moving forward, we also have a Fire Services Consolidation Ad Hoc Subcommittee. The purpose of this committee is to provide recommendations on fire protection services and other associated issues with delivery of fire suppression services throughout the county. The supervisors assigned to this ad hoc subcommittee are Supervisor Swarthout and Supervisor Hook. Moving forward, we have 4 more, which is we have the Office Reorganization Ad Hoc Subcommittee. This ad hoc committee was actually established last year to provide board input and recommendations on the changes to the clerk of the board's office. We only anticipate 1 more ad hoc committee on this, and it will probably be dissolved shortly thereafter. The members of this committee are Supervisor Schofield and Supervisor Bullock. Additionally, we have the Yuba River Public Safety Cohort ad hoc focused on the South Yuba River Management Plan. And so this ad hoc subcommittee's purpose is to provide recommendations related to the South Yuba River Management Plan, as obvious from its title, and to work with the Yuba River Cohort on those recommendations. This includes Supervisor Heidi Hall and Supervisor Sue Hook. We also have a housing ad hoc subcommittee focused on workforce housing. The purpose is to support the development of workforce housing programs and the potential reorganization of county's overall delivery of housing services. This includes Supervisors Swarthout and Supervisor Bullock. And then last but not least, we have the Recreational Master Plan Ad Hoc Subcommittee. And this is to provide recommendations on staff regarding the Recreational Master Plan. This includes Supervisor Hook and Supervisor Bullock. And so this is just a really brief presentation to provide some orientation for the public and for yourselves. I do want to say what's important to me is to really thank you and thank the endless work that you as our board members do on a whole range of components, but including your work on all the various different ad hoc subcommittees. And additionally, staff will be working to help support you and helping you provide any type of updates as you see fit during your own time to provide announcements. With that, I will stop and answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from the board? Anything? No? Okay. I guess I don't have any questions, Jeff. Thanks for the summary. Let's go ahead and open up public comment on this item. Any public comment on item number 23, the ad hoc structure that Jeff presented for us? No? Okay.
Chair, there are no callers and no written comment either.
No callers, no written comment. Okay. Any additional comments by the board before I close the item?
I'll just note that this is not new, this is a structure we've been using for a number of years. It's just that you're presenting it, and so the public is more aware.
That's absolutely correct. And this is widely used also across all 58 counties throughout California. So this is nothing new. It began just to provide further orientation and education to the public.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I will mention that there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into making this meeting function, all the work and supporting all the board objectives and all the staff side. From the board side, being present within those meetings and all the other 40 committees, and that ranges from WAFCO to the Ag Advisory Committee to there's just tremendous, some of us sit on 3, 4, 5, 6 of those at a time. A lot of the work happens outside the meeting, so we can come into the meeting and get the people's business done without a lot of stress and confusion. And so I just want to say thanks to everybody who goes to support all those, because this meeting is one, but there's multiple meetings across the county with related jurisdictions. So a lot of work goes into it, and we appreciate you. And really the focus and the structure of the ad hoc is great because you can sit around the table and work and get work done. So thanks. No other questions here, no public comment. We'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 23.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
District 2?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to individual board member items unless we need a break. Anybody need a break? All set? Okay. This is item number 24, Supervisor Hall and Supervisor Hook. And this is to discuss a letter of comment in opposition to Pacific Bell Telephone Company's, obviously otherwise known as AT&T, California amended application for targeted relief from its carrier of last resort obligation and certain associated tariff obligations. I'll start with Supervisor Hall, and then we'll go to Supervisor Hook to open the item.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jeffrey, for being here to fill in all the details. I think just bottom line, AT&T is asking CPUC to allow them to withdraw their support for our basic copper-based landlines, just our good old-fashioned phones that we use in emergencies. We know we've had at least 90 comments so far from folks who are saying that this is their emergency support and they cannot do without, and there is no alternative. And this is just since we've started advertising just from the county that this is happening. I'm guessing there are a lot more people out there as they start to hear about this who have this issue. So we want to make sure that CPUC understands that we do not support AT&T doing this, that they need to continue to provide service to folks through their landlines, which are essential during emergencies. And I'll pass it on to Supervisor Hook to add anything.
No, thank you. I would echo that, and I would just say it's just interesting. I'm going to throw something out that was just a little iconic to me, that there's big system went out, and they advised everyone to use their landlines day before yesterday. So we do need the landlines. And I've really been watching social media. We've been doing this for, Heidi and I have been working on AT&T issues for 4 years, where people can't get their hookups. There's been a lot of interest in this, and I do feel like this has become a health and safety issue in our community. So, Jeff, I'm going to let you lead off with all the information we have created.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Supervisor Hook, Supervisor Hall, Chair Bullock, and members of the board. Again, Jeff Thorsby, your Chief of Staff, here to provide a presentation on the AT&T proposed withdrawal as the carrier of last resort. And so before I begin, I do just want to acknowledge that we have Tracy Ryan, a legislative advocate from Rural County Representatives on the line. And I'm going to go through a summary kind of presentation and then kick it over to her for any additional comments, and she's available for questions as well. And I just want to really call out RCRC has really been an amazing advocate for rural counties, specifically on this issue, and Tracy is a wealth of knowledge, and so we're pleased to have her. And so thank you for being on the line, Tracy. So, and as Supervisor Hook and Supervisor Hall, as you noted, AT&T has submitted applications to withdraw from its designation as a carrier of last resort in the majority of its state, throughout the state. You see on the screen and in front of your monitors is a map of Nevada County. This is an interactive map that actually AT&T has that residents can go and look, and it shows the blue is the area by which they're requesting to remove their designation as a carrier of last resort. I will talk a little bit about what that means. And then the pink is the area where they are identifying where they intend to remove their designation at a future date. You can see that within that map, the area that is not covered is mostly Tahoe National Forest. So it really is the majority of the entire county. Additionally, their application also is to withdraw from its designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier. We refer to that as an ETC. And this is where a telephone company that operates in a specific geographical area is able to receive financial assistance for the federal government and receive federal dollars for certain activities. AT&T's application also requests expedited approval for future withdrawal as the carrier of last resort through a CPUC Tier 1 advice letter process. This is important because it would then circumvent the need and the requirement to have CPUC make an actual approval ruling. It would basically make it administrative. Those are important. Real quick, I do just want to highlight a couple key concepts here. Carrier of last resorts, what are they? So those are landline telephone carriers which are required to serve, upon request, all customers within their designated service area. California has approximately 22 carriers of last resorts, with AT&T being one of the largest, and obviously the one for Nevada County. We also see this term POTS, and I think Supervisor Hall, you kind of mentioned good old-fashioned telephone, but in the acronym in CPUC world, they refer to this as plain old telephone service. So I think it's exactly what you meant. But essentially, that is our copper lines, landline services. And POTS has a uniform set of minimum service standards and regulations that does not extend to new technologies that can provide similar service, such as voice over internet protocol. And so I'll talk a little bit about what AT&T is requesting, but essentially some of the key rationale is, and we acknowledge the maintenance of those copper lines is costly. That is true, and there is a challenge to doing that. However, the rationale is to transition residents over to a VIOP service, but not as a carrier of last resort, meaning they would no longer be required to provide that service. Right now, for example, if I can't get any communication service, if I reach out to AT&T to get POTS, our plain old telephone service, they're required by law to do so. And so this would remove that component. A couple things I do just want to highlight is in a recent communication that went out, maybe it was last week or late last week, which was an email that many AT&T customers received, which articulated a couple components that I did want to address. One is they basically highlighted that they will continue to provide service in the area as the only service provider, that they are working to upgrade antiquated copper lines through other new technologies. And, essentially the kind of key component was no one's going to be left behind, and we're going to this is for an upgrade component, and that only about 7% of households will be impacted by this. Well, I just want to articulate it that without the regulation, there's nothing to hold AT&T in that requirement to ensure that they provide service. So it removes those certain standards of service. In addition, as you noted, Supervisor Hook, the county in the last presentation, broadband still remains a priority objective for your board, and that's because there's a lot of folks in Nevada County that don't have internet broadband services, which thereby means that if they don't have dependable broadband services, they can't get VIOP service right now if they don't have that. So there's already a challenge that we're upfront about. Additionally, the 7% articulation that they're articulating is misleading, because if you look from a state perspective, the majority of residents within California are living in urban areas where that may be the case. But in rural areas like Nevada County and across the state, that's not the case. And I think a recent component estimate from RCRC was potentially 580,000 customers may be at risk across the state. We actually don't have the exact numbers of Nevada County, and that's why we've been reaching out. Anyway, so let me kind of continue to move forward. So I just want to articulate, as soon as we became aware of this issue in our office, really through the leadership of Supervisor Hook and Supervisor Hall, began spreading the word in local community meetings, newsletters, and social media. To date, back in August, began tracking and creating a spreadsheet that identifies those individuals who said, hey, this is the only way that I can communicate is through this landline. We have logged that, and we've provided all that information to our government liaison for AT&T, so that's been provided to date. In addition, I just want to highlight too, in AT&T's application, and it's in your board as a supporting document, they've articulated the various communities that would be impacted by this, and that includes Alta Floreston, Grass Valley, Kingsvale, Lake Wildwood, Lake of the Pines, Nevada City, North San Juan, Penn Valley, Rough and Ready, Soda Springs, the town of Truckee, to name a few that they identified. But there are others, including the town of Washington, which I double-checked would be impacted. They are included within the carrier of last resort. So there's other communities that we haven't named that would be a great risk, and as you see from the map. So what we've really heard from residents, we want to make sure that it's articulated, is a really extreme distress regarding the ability to access emergency services, law enforcement, and the inability to receive emergency notifications during wildfire evacuation events through the county's Code Red system, telephone emergency public alert system. should CPUC approve AT&T's withdrawal, communities could see telecommunication networks going black within 6 months. Residents stress how emergency events where there's a loss of power, is just as you mentioned, Supervisor Hook, landlines are the only dependable way to communicate as cell towers go down and no power to use the internet if there's broadband at all. Again, I think I would stress too, the most rural and some of the most disadvantaged folks in our community would be at risk. And then currently, I do just want to articulate, this is what I want to make sure the public is aware. Currently, CUP is holding 4 in-person and virtual forums for customers of AT&T to provide input. 2 of those have already passed, but you'll see March 14th and March 19th are times. The first one, March 14th, is in person in Indio City Hall. That's down in Los Angeles. So we recognize the majority of our folks won't be able to go to that. But on March 19th, this is virtual only. You'll see on the phone number, and I'm going to read it out loud for the public who are maybe streaming this, 1-800-857-1917 is the phone number to call into that remote meeting, and the passcode is 603-2788. This is all found on the CPUC's website, easily findable. Also, there's an online public comment forum that you can make public comment just online, a written public comment. So we want to make sure that folks are available and are aware of that. I think some other additional staff concerns when we think about this would be, you know, how does the withdrawal impact our fire agencies and our first responders, and specifically CAL FIRE and the service responsibility area, you know, in terms of folks being able to call in a fire or vice versa, or being notified to get out. And while we acknowledge, and I think I articulated this, I think while we acknowledge the use of POTS and copper line technology is going antiquated and is costly to maintain, it does seem to be in the public's interest and its well-being that any removal of that needs to be done when there's a reliable alternative already in place to ensure no residents are left behind. I think that's the key initiative. And so, you know, I would like to, at this point, go ahead and take down the slide and provide an opportunity for Tracy Ryan to provide any comments from her perspective. And of course, she's available to answer questions. Tracy, I'm going to go turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Jeffrey, a very comprehensive outline of what is happening with this. You did a really good job. I think the only thing that I would have to add is that, you know, the underlying premise of this is that according to AT&T, that these areas, the 580,000 that they're asking to customers that they're asking to be relieved of that obligation, the premise is that those customers have alternative services, whether it be VoIP, whether it be cell phone. But the reality is, in the application by AT&T, they define a customer having the ability to have access to an alternative service as 50% of that census block being covered by a cell phone service. So to think about that, and I live in a rural area as well, we're not even talking about reliability or redundancy. You know, sometimes I have to stand on one leg at the top of my property, right, to get my cell phone to work. We're talking about literally 50% of that census block not having access. And so the application and it's on its face is flawed. And so we've been advocating along with CSAC and other local government entities and community organizations that really the CPUC needs to outright reject this, because there is no, like Jeffrey said, just very succinctly, these customers don't have any other option, a reliable option, especially in high disaster prone areas. And so I am here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I think the last thing I would just say is, in the last few months, you know, we've received calls daily on this. When we're out in the community, I'm hearing about this continually. And so this is definitely front and center for a lot of our residents. So thank you so much, and we'll turn it over to you, Chair, for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And Tracy, thanks for dialing in to help us work through this issue. And your organization supported this issue statewide. Any questions from the board? No questions? Ed?
I wonder if we can get the map back up there.
Sure, absolutely. If we could share that map. Give us 1 sec, Supervisor. We're sharing that so Tracy, you can see it too.
First off, because it affects District 2, what is the yellow area that goes into Placer County? Forest Service, really?
It may not be Forest Service. I was just saying, I was really referring to the top there. The carrier of last resort it's clear it's not included right there. That doesn't mean just because it doesn't mean that it is Forest Service. I was really referring to District 1, so I apologize. But what that does mean, sir, is that that small area in District 2 is not covered by any carrier of last resort at this time.
Oh, already?
Already, that's correct.
Oh, I have a question about that. Which one are the areas that they plan on providing service in? Because I think if the map is kind of color rectified, there's a yellow hue and then there's a white hue. And the yellow to me looks like maybe it's National Forest Service, but the white one is other. So where on this map does the carrier actually serve? Or is there nothing?
No, I think that maybe the monitor, so that you're looking at those hues. So essentially, there's really 3 colors to be looking at on this map. You have that green hue color, you have the pink, and you have the white yellowish. The white yellowish refers to there's no carrier of last resort identified in that area currently. The blue and the pink show where AT&T is the carrier of last resort currently. Blue refers to where their application they will withdraw immediately, and pink refers to where they anticipate potentially coming back through the Tier 1 advice component to remove their carrier of last resort. And Tracy, let me know if I'm reading that incorrectly, but that's how I understand it.
Okay, all right. It doesn't necessarily mean there isn't cell service there, though, right now.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
Okay, that's clarified. Then the violet, I've had a person contact me on why Washington wasn't included on that list.
So the town of Washington?
Yeah.
So I've reached out, and so the communities that are identified in the staff report were taken directly from what AT&T's application of identified communities, but I went through and double checked, and Washington is in the carrier of last resort. So this is not meant to be an exhaustive list. It really does impact more communities than just the ones I mentioned.
Okay. So can we add Washington? I mean, that seems like a pretty good sized.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then also the violet one, I mean, is it because they recognize that there really isn't any other opportunities? Is that canyon areas that we're looking at?
I honestly would have to double check to find out why there was no carrier of last resort designated in the first place in that area. These decisions were made a long time ago, and so I don't know. Usually, I'm guessing it would probably be from, severely low population.
Yeah, and so it does seem like that they do have lines up there. And now what you mentioned earlier was the administrative. That's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, Tracy, do you want to talk a little bit about what that expedited process would look like?
Right. Yeah. I think that is something to really focus on that gets left behind in this proceeding, because it does do those two things, right? These are the places that we no longer want to serve now. These are the places, and according to AT&T, it's about 1,400 residents statewide in those lilac or whatever purplish colored areas that AT&T is defining that they have no alternative service. So those are ones that they're saying in the future, we want to go through this streamlined process, which is your Tier 1 advice letter, which essentially, as Jeffrey stated, it is a letter from the carrier that has very minimal requirements, and it's kind of rubber stamped by the PUC. And so, frankly, it's kind of the camel's nose under the tent, because that will apply to all carrier of last resorts, that streamlined process. And so I know that AT&T is your carrier of last resort in your county, but if you look statewide, this would make it that Frontier, another carrier of last resort in some of our northern state, would have this just rubber stamped process to be able to be relieved from its obligation to provide service. And that means hooking up new people, maintaining their current lines, and all the other customer service regulation that comes with a plain old telephone service. So, yeah, I think it's something to not lose sight of.
I think they're going to need their pots. So if I may, just one more thing. I heard from a constituent of mine, they were having trouble with Verizon. Maybe you guys can kind of clarify this. That they were calling Verizon, and what they were told was Verizon has sold many of their cell towers to AT&T, and that has disrupted some of Verizon's carriers. And they specifically mentioned North San Juan and said, well, anybody that has Verizon in North San Juan has no carriers at all up there now. So if that's true, you not only have them getting rid of the pots, but also manipulating the cell towers. That just doesn't seem right either. So, I mean, that's something we need to be aware of also. And thank you for the work that you guys have done on this. It's greatly appreciated. We've been basically just sending our notes to you guys.
So can I just real quick say one thing, so Tracy could help with this a little bit. I just want to be clear. The issue here is if this was passed, they sent out a letter and said no one will be left behind. But if this is passed, you might have it now until we have a snowmageddon. But once those lines are gone, there will be nothing that says they have to come and work them and maintain it. Tracy, would you talk to that or make sure I'm saying it correctly?
Absolutely. No, 100%. And that's something that came up yesterday when I was talking to the Northern California Sheriff's Association about this, that, and that goes back right to that regulation and obligation of being a carrier of last resort, that then when there is an issue, which happens quite regularly in our areas, snowmageddon, fire, there is no requirement or time period that they have to get out and maintain those lines. And now when there's no longer an obligation, will they maintain their lines? I mean, again, going back to the premise of this is that AT&T has stated that they spend $1 billion on maintaining their antiquated copper lines throughout the state, and that's money that they want to put into advanced technologies. We don't disagree with putting money into advanced technologies in our areas, but there is no requirement in this that one, those advanced technologies and investments come to our areas, and two, we can't have the cart before the horse, right? We need to have some reliable communication before this one's taken out, especially when it isn't regulated. A cell phone, VoIP, are not regulated. There aren't those requirements for energy backup, right? For maintaining the lines quality, service quality. So you are absolutely 100% correct.
Thank you. One other thing I'd just like to throw out there is we did invite AT&T to be here today.
Yeah, we reached out to the government liaison just to ensure that they're aware that we're bringing forward this item, and they had a link to the agenda and everything.
Lisa, did you have a few comments?
A couple questions. So thank you for the work that you've done on this. I've probably had the least amount of constituents just because my area is a little bit more urban and most people have cell service, but I do have a lot of elderly people in my district who are terrified about this because it often for them, if they're isolated, whether they're in a senior apartment or in their own home, they feel like they have zero connection to the outside world if there's a major event. And the power does go out occasionally in Grass Valley. And I know years ago during one of the snowstorms, my next door neighbor was the only person who had a landline and a rotary phone. So we all went to his house to call our significant others or talk to people. I was curious, I know most of the calls and the work that you've done have been residential, but has there been any outreach to the business community? Because many people still have AT&T phone lines going into their businesses in Nevada County. At the time, I know when I had my business, I had 4 landlines into my business for various things, but if there's no AT&T service for those businesses, they can't do business because they can't operate their credit card processing equipment because they don't have the availability of wireless where they are in, a more urbanized area or more rural area. So I was just curious if there's any consideration in the business community for this.
That is a great question, Supervisor Swarthout, and I appreciate that. To date, most of the outreach we've done has been through the District 1 and District 4's newsletters and through community meetings. But I think to that point, I think it would be a great opportunity to maybe present to the Economic Resource Council, work with Sierra Business Council to make sure that all the businesses are notified and work with your Economic Development Program Manager, Kimberly Parker.
And the chambers. I mean, when you look at, the population of the state of California, approximately 40 million people, you're talking about an extremely small percentage of people who will be affected by this when you look at the numbers, even though it's 100% of our communities and in the rural. I'm curious if the CPUC is really taking this seriously, because for AT&T to say, oh, we're going to put this money into new technologies, all that's going to go into the urban environments. It's not going to come, they're not going to do new technologies in Nevada County or, going up the North State. So I'm just curious as to what the argument is or what the discussion is around that.
Maybe I'll kick that question over to Tracy, but I will say that seeing the community meetings and the work and the information, it certainly appears that the CPUC is taking this seriously and could be really considering it. But I think that's why I'll lean on Tracy, who's there at the Capitol.
Yeah, I think that is a really good question. The 3 participation hearings that they've had thus far have been very long. I think the one in Ukiah went till 9:00 at night, and so which is very, very important, and something that we've been doing a lot of outreach around is making sure that the PUC does hear from the communities, because like you said, it is in the big scheme, right, of the population, 580,000 people are a small portion. However, it does represent a lot, total large swaths of our communities, and communities that do struggle with challenges with natural disasters, wildfires, mudslides, all of those things. And so where it becomes even more important, and places that don't have reliable cell service, right, it becomes even more important that we have those landlines, not even talking about PSPS events. So I think that the PUC, through these public participation hearings, have really had their eyes open to how important it is to some of our communities. Unfortunately, this is a rate-setting process, a rate-setting proceeding, and so it is just by its very nature very long and complicated. And so I think this will continue through the process. I don't see them rejecting it outright without going through the process. So I think they're taking it seriously on both sides of it because they know it is a precedent.
And I'd also say too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, but RCRC is actually a party to the proceeding. So the RCRC is representing rural counties in these proceedings. So that's really important.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Thanks. I think there's one other nuance here that I just want to be really clear on and make sure I've got it correctly. But the way it sounds to me is they're saying that where they pull out the pots, they're going to make sure people have an alternative. That's what they were saying originally. However, I believe that they're going to be saying, oh, Verizon says you have service here. Might be that you don't have reliable service, or you actually don't have service. It's just their maps say that. And so they're going to say, so sad, too bad. Verizon says you have service here, so that's good enough. And that's a nuance here where they may agree to pull back where there is no cell service, no internet service on the maps, wherever those few places are. But I'm worried that they're going to be pointing to those maps to say, no, you do have another service, and therefore it's okay to pull those out. So if that's true, then we need to be emphasizing that as well, that these maps are not accurate. That's not how they should be determining if they have an alternative communication, option, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that started this was the maps were just very inaccurate that they first came out with. And it is interesting all over. So for example, I'll use Lake Wildwood. Lake Wildwood has a tower, but I have numerous pockets there that have no service, none. And you can't just go drive out 2 miles to get to your phone line, right? So it's very different and isolated all through the topography we have in here in our state. And I just always like to say this, it's always too bad. Over time, I know we keep looking at cell service and all the modern technologies, and I get those. So I think that over time, all the deferred maintenance that goes with AT&T or any of these other entities, they let it go. So now it does take more to keep it in shape because they haven't taken care of it over time because the accentuant has been too new technology. But like I said, when you look at this, I know I have Verizon. I've been with Verizon since I had my bag phone, right? And I have to drive somewhere to go use my phone at home. Occasionally I can get a call in, occasionally I can get a text, but it's not reliable. In an emergency, it's a challenge. My mother had a heart monitor that had to be read by her little phone monitor, right? I had to go drive to town for it to read every time. So those are things that are challenging. I met a lady the other day, and she has a machine that is read, but it has to go through the old line. It doesn't, we had the, which AT&T did provide for a while, but that, the good old first beginning types of internet service. But they haven't, our medical facilities haven't come alongside with that either for rural communities. So there's just a lot of things that we keep looking at. And I think that's been the biggest fear. Like you were just talking about, I talked to a lady the other day, she's 80 years old, well, 89 actually now. She's sharp little cookie, but she had a heart attack. And if they hadn't been able to use the phone, nobody would have been able to get to her for X amount of time. So there's a lot of folks that are living with that here in the community. And I hear that too. Well, you choose to live rural? Well, we do, but we've been existing here for years, and we don't want to be left out until new technology reaches all of us. Just saying.
And maybe one thing I'd just like to add, Chair Bullock, is just for your awareness, the City of Nevada City will be has agendized a letter of opposition at their meeting tomorrow evening. So they are looking at this issue as well. And yeah, so I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Just a couple comments. I really appreciate Supervisor Hook and Supervisor Hall bringing this forward and doing work. I knew you were doing it, so a lot of the constituents that I have, I refer them to Sarah Hollyhead to collect their names because I knew you were doing this. So thanks for putting the effort into that. In District 5, I heard an interesting comment on this, that we have a lot of short-term rentals with copper lines. The phone lines have been associated with, just like in Tahoe Donner alone, there's 6,000 homes. I think like 4,800 of them are second homes. And so when those people visit here, they may not geographically have code red on their phone for our area. So if you have an emergency in our area, they may get alerted for Redwood City, but they don't get alerted for Nevada County right down the street. So that copper line is actually the only way, like if we had to really get a hold of people. And I don't know all the intricacies of that technology, but that was a great point that I thought was really interesting to me because they just they may not be alerted in the same way, which was really concerning to me for some of those areas. Truckee itself has fairly decent cell reception, but I know the other communities that I serve in District 5 have essentially no cell reception whatsoever, Washington being one of them, 0. You cannot get a cell reception. There's one spot at the top where everybody goes. So I think from my perspective, thank you for bringing this forward. There's areas in all of our community, including Grass Valley and Nevada City, that still need those lines. I would urge the list of communities on page 1 of the letter to include Washington, Hurstdale, and Plavada, or the addition of those communities, and any others that we think would be relevant on there. The other piece that's, I think, interesting. I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a second. I wish Bernie Sanders was in the meeting with us. But it really troubles me when you talk about, hey, we can invest this if we just take this out, right? If I don't maintain the copper, I could put $1 billion into technology investments. What actually has to happen is the company needs to, instead of turning shareholder returns and giving that money out, they need to invest in our community. They need to invest in our community the way that we live and work, the way we've invested in their community and their business over the last 75 years, which has made them whole. They need to take that money and put their money into our community to provide technology for our community. And so I would like to add it to the letter. You can use the narrative language that you feel is appropriate, but I think we should bring that up. Other utility companies come to mind, and they won't be named today. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I would just add on the, when you're adding the list, I think we just need to say, and others at the end, because I think there are just undocumented areas that, I mean, areas that don't have a name, they're just out in the woods, and, you know, they're not going to, yeah, we just need to be all-inclusive for the county.
Okay.
As well as you're adding on your community.
Thanks for bringing it forward. Any other public comment regarding this item? I'm sorry, I'm going to open public comment for this item. Teen's looking at me, shaking her head like this. Yep.
Name first, Melissa Funk. I'm District 4. My older sister and I bought property in Nevada County, north of Nevada City last June. I'm up near San Juan Ridge. Yeah, I have Verizon. I don't have phone service. I called AT&T to get phone service, a landline. We're both older. They turned me down. I'm surprised that I could have demanded phone service, a landline, as a carrier of last resort. But they tried to sell me voice over internet, and I said no. 27 days ago, my sister collapsed, unconscious on our property. While trying to resuscitate her and give her chest compressions, I tried dialing 911 from my Verizon phone, and I didn't get through. Tree trimmers responded to my screaming. One of them thankfully took over chest compressions. The other managed to run around and find a way to dial 911. Despite all our work, despite trying, it took 45 minutes for a paramedic to get there. If I'd had a landline, that may have saved me 15 minutes, and 15 minutes away from 45 is not much, but that 15 minutes could have saved my sister's life. I can't say she died because we didn't have a landline, but this is precisely what everybody in here just talked about. It happened to me. I don't have my sister, and I don't have a landline, and I have no way of contacting anybody if it happens again. Don't let them take our landlines away. Thank you.
Yeah, we're sorry for your loss. Thank you for your comments.
My name is Heather McAdam, and I'm a neighbor to Melissa. I'm glad I was able to get her here today. I want to thank the Nevada County Board of Supervisors for having this meeting and to take public input on PG's application to withdraw the landline services from our county. AT&T, as we all know, wants to permanently disconnect our landlines. And the letter I received from them was, quote, there are other alternative phone service options available. And as we all know, there are not. this is not an accurate statement, and I'm really glad I came because you guys have filled in some holes of information. I kind of anticipated AT&T not necessarily following through with their commitments, but I've been a homeowner in Nevada County for 45 years. I've had a landline that entire time, and mine has been very reliable. Even when the power went out, the rotary phone still worked. During the COVID pandemic, my husband was sick and bedridden, and having that reliable phone was essential to the necessary doctor appointments we did on the telemed process. We also had to call the ambulances a couple of times. And I have a Verizon cell phone, and I use it to travel, but not out where I live, which is North San Juan area, because it's not reliable at my home address specifically for emergencies. With the ever-increasing dangers of our long fire season, having a reliable landline has become a matter of life and death. It's our lifeline. When we experienced the Reader fire last summer, the only form of communication that notified me of the brief but mandatory evacuation was my landline via red code, not my cell phone. Unfortunately, wildfires will be a part of our future for years to come. However, by assuring people are notified of surrounding emergencies in a timely manner, we can save lives and minimize the catastrophic damages that happened during the Paradise and Maui fires. And I just want to thank you guys again. It's really important to me, so thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Hello, Erin Lynette. I live in Area 1, and I sit on the Freed board, and I also sit on the Agency on Aging Area 4 board. And this is I had my first meeting this last month, and this was the whole issue of getting our counties to respond to these meetings with letters, which you are doing, and thank you. Also, with Freed, we're also worried about people with disabilities. They don't have the ability to always get into a car, to drive down the street, to use their cell phone. And this could also end up, with somebody dying because they cannot get through. The other thing is that I have a neighbor that I spoke with the other day on his landline. He's 90 years old. He doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't know how to use a computer. And he got that letter. He goes, what am I going to do? And, I told him about this meeting, and I gave him an address so he could write a letter and the phone number to call. I would also ask the county that maybe they can do public service announcements in the newspaper to let people know this is going on, because we have a lot of people that are in their 80s and 90s that don't have cell phones. They don't know how to use computers. So they aren't on Facebook or Instagram. So we need to have a way of reaching them also. And I agree with everything else that was said, so I'm not going to go any further. Thank you.
Aaron, thanks for your comments.
Hi, my name is Barbara Hoff. I have lived in District 5 since 1971 and have had a landline most of that time. I still have it. I've been very stubborn. I'm just an old Luddite, I guess, and I want something that works. And I do have a Verizon phone at this point, and I can now use it in places besides standing in the exact center of my dining table and not turning my head. But that was the case with it for a long time. Unfortunately, they upgraded it, and so I no longer have internet service, really. I have a hotspot that sort of works. And they admit that. They go, oh, does it still work? But also now I'm having a lot of trouble with the landline. Of course, it's copper. And of course, Snowmageddon took a big chunk of it out. I live on the backside of Banner Mountain. So I check now almost daily, is the phone working? Because it'll just go out and I won't even realize it. I'm not getting a lot of junk calls, but sometimes that just is the way it is anyway. Somebody called me and said I couldn't get through to you on your landline. Fortunately, my Verizon phone did work. but it's getting to be, I depended on that, and I still do. That's my primary phone. I have an answering machine on it. I am not a cell phone native, and I have to talk to my grandkids about doing things on it. But it's important. I did get the letter from them. I am so grateful that you're taking this up, because it's a huge issue. Even though I am one of the fortunate ones that does have some backup with the Verizon. But yeah, it's not okay for them to give it up. I remember when they took over basically all of the Pacific Bell, the Singular, all the other lines in the area. They squeezed everybody out, and now it's no fun for them anymore, and they want to unload it. Well, sorry, but you're a service. You're not just vulture capitalist company. So that's enough grumping for me, but that's one of your constituents' attitude about this issue. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Supervisor Hook.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could give your information to Jeff, because we can reach out to you about seeing when they're coming to fix your line.
Oh, they fixed it.
Oh, it is fixed,
Yeah.
okay.
I never know. I call in, and they said it'd be fixed by the 29th. Will they fix it Sunday?
Oh, good. So the workers here are fantastic. I
They're
want to throw that out.
wonderful.
We've got a
It's-
great crew that works in Nevada County, and they can only do what their bosses allow them. But if you do have
Yeah.
that problem, please reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks for mentioning that. Any other public comment?
Chair Bullock, we do have one caller, and your board also received 6 letters in support of your proposed letter.
Okay, great. Let's go to the caller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, Board. This is Diana Gamzon. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada County Cannabis Alliance, representing the licensed cannabis industry in Nevada County. And we fully support this letter of opposition, and thank you all so much for your hard work. We represent over 150 cannabis businesses that are farming in the rural part of our community, and many of those are in the most rural part of our county, including North San Juan. One of the impacts to our business community is that commercial farms require automatic fire alarms, which must be hooked up to landlines. And so without this critical infrastructure in place to have landlines, it's really impacts health and safety on these commercial businesses. And our community members and our cannabis businesses that are operating in areas like North San Juan, they do solely rely on their landlines as their primary use of communication. So thank you so much for taking this on and for all of your representation on this issue.
Thanks, Diana. Thanks for calling in. Any other callers or public comment? Okay.
Can I just comment on that? Chair, thank you. Diana, I want to thank, if you're still listening, thank you for calling in and telling us that we should add that to our letter. I mean, there's all these other effects. I didn't know that. We hadn't thought of, I'm sure there are other things we haven't thought of that would affect this. So if folks have additional information, let us know. And Tracy, this is probably good for you to know as well. Thank you.
Okay, any other callers? No, and no more comments. I just want to mention one thing that I think was brought up when Barbara was speaking, and it goes with the corporate profit piece, which is obviously there's segments within a market that big that are not profitable, and that's part of the corporate responsibility to our community. And unfortunately, we're in that area, and that's another way of articulating, I think, my earlier comments for the letter. Yeah, that we understand that marketplace is going to have areas that aren't profitable, but when you're a global conglomerate, it should be okay.
Perfect.
And monopolized through the regulatory framework that makes you the only carrier that we can rely upon. Any other comments from the board? Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. it's the same reason that we don't have broadband in a lot of places, is because
Perfect.
they say that AT&T and Comcast cover you, and so they don't allow independent providers to come in, when in fact they don't cover us. And I know Comcast is another option for the business community, because they do provide phone service. But in these very rural areas, the cost of getting Comcast to your home, it's cost prohibitive. It's just never going to work. So we, as rural communities, again, we have to band together. And I was curious, you mentioned that CSAC was also taking a position on looking at this. Do you know if the California League of Cities is also, Tracy might know, if they weighed in on this also? They represent a lot of rural cities.
I don't know. Tracy, do you know if the league has?
They have not
They
yet.
have not, okay. I'll mention that to one of their board members, because
Okay.
they should, this is a city issue as well as county issues, and so thanks again. And thank you to the members of the public for coming today. Ms. Funk, I'm so sorry for your loss, but you really, for me, you hit home with your comments, because the very first thing that I thought of when we started seeing this is that people will die if they don't have this service. And I hate to put it in those kind of dramatic terms, but it really is the reality of what could happen in our rural county. So thank you for expressing that. I don't know if you have the time to tell that story at the call-in meeting that's coming up in March, but I think it's very impactful. So
Go ahead.
Just one more other thing. My heart goes out to you, Melissa. Thank you. Took a lot of courage today, so thank you so much for coming and sharing that story. Yeah. But I want to say one other thing that happened, and it happened a lot, and I just want to throw this out because this was another complaint I got. People think they're having a landline with voiceover. And that's a very interesting, like we talk about Comcast, right? So a lot of people were convinced they were going to have all this great service plus a landline. And that has been another thing that's very confusing in our community. And I've had a lot of complaints about that. And then they've wanted to go back to their landline and have been refused. So even though there's something else available, it is not as solid. And that was a very confusing, I know it's a sales model and I know it's marketing, but you don't have a landline when you have voiceover. So, and we found that out, I think a lot of people in our first big disaster we had with fire. So lots of things in communication that's been a little bit confusing to a lot of our folks in our community.
I just had one more quick question. The thought came to mind, and maybe Allison can weigh in, but I was thinking that I think somebody mentioned a PSA, which I think is appropriate, but there's also a number of different technologies that are out there that allow you to be connected without, like Garmin InReach and Spot device, and Apple makes a device now, and there's others that support, basically, you push a button and rescue's on their way kind of thing. And I think my point in all this is that all those alternative technologies, including probably Starlink, could be wrapped up into a PSA to let people know that in unincorporated, off-grid, or frontier areas, there is this list of other technologies that are out there that could help serve those needs. And I don't know if that's our responsibility or maybe it's from fire and rescue's responsibility or somebody. It just seems like a reasonable piece. I know that technology changes so fast that even people that are into technology, you may not know what's available to you. But for about $200, you can get a thing that's about the size of a pack of gum. You leave it on, and if you push a button, rescue comes to the location of that device. It's like that simple. So just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I made note of that. We have not discussed in terms of public outreach and education on alternative technology, but that's something that we could talk about. But at the very least, I thought it was a good recommendation from the public in terms of doing enhanced public communication.
Awesome, thanks. Jeff, do you have anything else?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify what I've heard from the board is looking at the letter, 3 different kind of components to include, and I would recommend that maybe I could work with Supervisor Hall and Supervisor Hook for the final language if this meets your the board's desire, but to include reference to other communities, including the town of Washington, Hurstdale, and other communities, have a component talking about the investment of the community and the need to do that, as the public honor mentioned. And then potentially also maybe referencing other unintended consequences, including impacts and notification systems that are required for commercial businesses. Does that sound correct?
Sounds accurate to me. Thanks so much for your time. And thanks to Supervisor Hook and Supervisor Hall for bringing this forward. I think we're looking for a resolution. A motion to support the resolution or letter.
I'll make the motion to support the letter as amended.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
District 2,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks everybody for coming to give your comments today.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Keep up that pressure for us.
We're moving on to announcements, and this is the period where the board can make announcements on any of their ad hoc or subcommittees that we described earlier, or any announcements that you may have for us, and then we'll go to Allison for any announcements from executive staff. Want to start with you, Sue?
I did mine last.
Yeah, we
so I
had a
don't
lot
have
of
anything
meetings,
new.
so, okay. Anything from you, Ed?
Well, I have done a few things. Anybody else reporting? Well, then I'll pass. Oh, you have a few things?
I was just going to talk about AQMD maybe, and maybe you'll mention that.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Ed and I had AQMD, Air Quality Management District, yesterday. It was a good meeting. I did want to mention that Supervisor Swarthout sat in on LAFCO, and I'm turning over my LAFCO responsibilities to Supervisor Swarthout, so I'm looking forward to you taking that over. You'll be a good representation on that piece. So that's it for me. I just had one more announcement that we're coming up on this joint meeting with Grass Valley, Nevada City, and the town of Truckee, and the Nevada County Board of Supervisors. I'd encourage anybody out there listening to go onto our website, look at the agenda, and listen in on that meeting. We're going to be talking about OES and response to emergencies for all the joint jurisdictions within the county. So I think it's going to be a great meeting. That's all I have.
I just have one thing really quick. Yesterday, a group of us from the county and the city of Grass Valley and law enforcement went and did a couple tours of animal shelters. So we went to the Placer County Animal Shelter, which is kind of the Taj Mahal of animal shelters. Everybody was ready to leave with the dog. They don't have very many cats. And then we also toured in the afternoon the Sutter County. And the Sutter County is actually kind of a similar model that we're looking at, because it's Sutter County and 2 incorporated cities that participate in it. So, and I would say their shelter is a little bit older, not quite as big, and they shared with us some challenges that they had about, if you're building a new shelter, here's a good model. So I think ours is going to lie somewhere between the 2 of those, but it was very informative, and I really appreciate all the work that staff has put in on this project, and I look forward to us bringing back some more detailed information and moving forward. But it's the collaboration between Grass Valley, Nevada City, and the county is going really well.
Thanks for doing that. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of work, I'm sure, there.
And I did not come home with a dog or a cat, although I was tempted.
Can I just take actually the opportunity? I am actually a little concerned about this storm coming up, so maybe Allison, when you report out, if you can, I have not seen any warnings yet coming out of OES, but it does sound like it could be as big as one of the snowmageddons we've had, and we won't know until it happens if it really does. But are we planning to get some public information out there to remind people to be prepared?
In East County, I got a big one from our staff. I'm sorry.
So staff have started communicating in terms of the storm and store preparedness. That's our messaging. We're also monitoring the storm closely through our EOC, as well as through Health and Human Services in terms of sheltering events. We've already connected with Sierra Roots to make sure that they have capacity and are staffed up to provide a warming shelter on West County, as well as our staff is staffing up to provide the same services in Eastern County. So we'll continue with the messaging throughout the week, as well as monitoring the storm, which may impact our joint meeting on Thursday. So we'll be working with the chair to make a decision on that in the next day.
Yeah, we're definitely watching. We've talked a lot about the details related to that meeting, so I think we'll probably talk more about that today. The forecast that I use comes out at 4 with the real predictive analysis for Thursday. So it's like, I think after Tuesday night, we should know a lot. Tonight, we'll know more.
And we'll communicate that not only to the board, but to the public as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that from East County, we did have a whole email with the warming shelter go out to all the stakeholders and stuff. So that was good to see that.
But Supervisor Hall will make sure that the EOC provides a briefing to the board today and throughout the week as the storm progresses. Thank you for that reminder.
And over to you, Allison, for any other executive announcements.
So I just wanted to share what Supervisor Swarthout explained in terms of our joint visit. It was really energizing to go with not only with Grass Valley and with law enforcement, but also with Sammy's friends to look at these shelters that will really inform our design process. And the collaboration is going extremely well, and there's shared goals to see this happen. 2 other report outs is I also had a meeting with the California Heritage Indigenous Resource Project, otherwise known as CHIRP. As you are aware, they're looking at purchasing the Woolman site. So we had a joint meeting with our community development agency, and they are initiating initial consultation with our team to make sure that they have all the information that they need as they move forward with that property. And then my last report out is that community members, Tom Cross, Norm Westmore, Jeff Dellis, Trish Jellis, and myself, went to Curious Forge and met with them. As all of you have toured their site, they really are a gem in our community. And we're continue to look at the connection in terms of workforce development, career technical education, and how we make those connections, not only with the county, but with our community partners.
Great, thanks for the update. And I was going to mention one more thing to the board while we're all here together. I talked to our chief of staff and mentioned to him that maybe during the same period, if we had direct questions for the chief of staff that we wanted to convene or convey in public, we do a lot of work with them individually. And so Jeff could be here to answer any questions if any of us during this announcement period in future meetings wanted to raise our hand and ask the chief of staff a question. He's here to answer that. And so just our luck, he just showed up. If anybody has a question, I don't have any questions for Jeff, but if anybody has one, now's the time.
I have a question. When can we expect the charters on our priority?
March 12th, it's coming to your meeting. It will be going to Budget Subcommittee in the next week. And then there will be for your review and approval at the 12th.
I know. Well, as I said, I didn't have anything to report, but I think I will report out on one little thing. One, we have met on our ad hoc fire services committee, and it just is amazing the work that's being done by those 3 organizations to make this consolidation work. So just want to know that's still moving forward. We'll have another meeting. We're waiting for the MSR to come out. So lots of good stuff going there. And then the other thing, we did have a LAFCO meeting, and I just would be remiss if I didn't say I was excited that LAFCO actually passed the opportunity to have my water suppression system in North San Juan with some of the things that need to be taken in place. You know, we have to have a vote, and there's some things that need to happen, but very excited for that, and also for the sewer annexation that happened in my district as well. So lots of good work going on there. But I forgot about that. I thought I better share.
Yeah, I was missing LAFCO. Now I know. Yeah, I heard that all those things were approved. That's great. Any other questions, comments, concerns for our chief of staff before we?
Can we raise department items?
Anything you want to address to the chief of staff?
Okay, I'm not sure if this qualifies, but I'll try it out since this is new. I know that Amy Irani is working on an alternative process for septic tanks, which would make it easier for us to build ADUs and housing. And just wondering if we can get kind of regular updates on that.
Absolutely, I can work with Allison.
Yeah, so Chair Bullock and Supervisor Hall, I'll make note of that, and we could talk about it at a time to come back and make a presentation to the board, not only around the septic, but also it will be captured in the charters that Supervisor Schofield mentioned, and we'll capture it there as well.
Oh, great, thank you.
Thanks. If there's no other business for us, I'm just going to mention again that the closed session during the period from 11:55 to approximately 12:30 is canceled for today. With that, seeing no other board business, we're going to adjourn this meeting.
Why was that canceled?